We all know football season is the greatest time of year, but drafting season's a very close second. So whether you're drinking and drafting with your boys for your annual home league or preparing for your next high-stakes draft, the top priority remains the same: winning, and more specifically, winning money. And what better way to do that than by drafting a beauty? That's why you've got to check out our brand new draft kit at Awesemo.com, created by experts who have profited over $7 million playing fantasy sports. These guys are going to help you crush your drafts this year with tools like the Draft Wingman that's powered by projections from the #1 ranked daily fantasy sports player in the world, Awesemo himself, and includes a one-of-a-kind recommendation engine that takes into account your prior picks to ensure a well-rounded team and optimal draft. Draft Wingman is also outfitted with best ball-specific recommendations, including our stack highlighting feature, which helps you complete your all-important best ball stack. If you're looking for more details, or maybe you're already down to join us for an incredible NFL season, click the following link and use the promo code WR, that's WR, to get the entire draft kit for only $9.95. We'll see you over there.
Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my top quarterbacks to be streaming for week #1 of the 2021 fantasy football season. Inside today's video, I'm going to be going in-depth into 5 quarterbacks that I believe you guys should be adding to your roster to stream at the quarterback position based upon their matchup in week #1 of the 2021 fantasy football season. I'm also going to be giving you guys an additional bonus quarterback at the end of the video that if none of these guys are available, that I believe you will be able to find off your waiver wire, and I feel pretty comfortable playing in week #1. But before we get into the breakdown of these quarterbacks, I'd like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, me and the guys over at the Awesemo Fantasy Football YouTube channel put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to let you guys know that if you have a Twitter and you would like to follow me on Twitter, please follow me at NotoriousFNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into the video. The first quarterback I want to be talking about is quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins, currently being rostered on 69% of the teams on Yahoo, and he is going up against the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Now, a lot of people like to poke fun at Kirk Cousins. They like to make fun of Kirk Cousins because his record on prime time isn't very good, because he's really just not the best of quarterbacks. But in this situation, up against the Cincinnati Bengals in a game with one of the highest expected point totals on the week, I believe that this is a smash matchup for Kirk Cousins up against the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this game is going to be very high scoring. I expect this game to be a back and forth affair, a barn burner of sorts when you look at these teams. You got the Minnesota Vikings. Sure, they don't have Irv Smith anymore, which does in a way hurt Kirk Cousins because he was going to be a huge red zone target for Kirk Cousins. But how much does it really take away for week #1 up against a bad Bengals defense? Probably nothing. They still have Justin Jefferson. They still have Adam Thielen. They bring in Chris Herndon, who will be able to fill somewhat of a void for Irv Smith. They also have
And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, I think, September 7th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are here to do it all once again. Don't adjust your dials. Don't worry, everybody. I changed my shirt. This is a different video. I promise we're not playing the same one from earlier today. 12 games on a slate. Don't really have any weather issues to worry about. Just got to break it all down on a really fun slate based on current ownership and pitching ownership. I think we're going to have a fun GPP day. Adam, how has your Tuesday been so far?
It's been good. I agree with you. I think it's a pretty fun slate to talk about, pretty fun slate to look at. Ran a crunch a few hours ago before we started getting lineups just to kind of see if things were shaking out the way that I expect them to. And I think for the most part they were. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's definitely setting up as one of those tournament slates where it could go really wrong really quickly. But, you know, I think those are fun because they come with a lot of upside as well.
Absolutely. So as you're getting in the door, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. It helps us out tremendously. Go subscribe and hit like on a bunch of videos on Awesemo Odds or Awesemo Fantasy Football. We've got 3 active running YouTube channels right now and podcast feeds. Anywhere you can get your podcast, you should be subscribed, or however you get your podcast, you should be subscribed, including for Betting You, our podcast only effort, I guess, between Ben and Matt. So go check that one out. Let's get into this. We got a lot to talk about, and we're starting it off with a doozy. It's changed a little bit since the beginning of the day, but not nearly as much as I was expecting. Orioles and Royals, 4.9 run implied total for the Orioles, 5.1 for the Royals. Alex Wells and Jackson Kowar. And we started here earlier today. Kowar at 6% ownership in our current run. I got him at 23% out of my last crunch. We'll see if that changes in the one that's running now. But to me, this is like a fantastic paydown option. And it feels almost even better given the fact that the Orioles are getting some ownership, not nearly as much as they were getting earlier today.
Yeah, it's insanely risky, to be clear. He's facing an Orioles team that has about a 5 implied run total in Camden Yards. Pretty risky spot. But right now, only projected a 6% ownership, only 5,300, threw 94 pitches in his last start. That was his first start back in the major leagues after a demotion. He had been up earlier in the year back in June. He really struggled when he was up then. But, pretty decent chance, I think, that he made some sort of adjustments in the minors. We did see, I was talking to you about it before the show, he was throwing a slider his last start that he did not have previously. He scrapped the curveball that he had been throwing. He didn't throw the slider a lot, threw it like 10%, didn't get any swings and misses on it. But I do at least view that as a positive that he was doing something after he got demoted and working on something. He's averaging 96 miles an hour on his fastball. He had a 34% strikeout at AAA. He's talented. Like, he has the ability to pitch well, and that's kind of all that you really need at 5K. And then when you think about it in terms of this slate specifically, like you said, the Orioles are getting ownership, so you get some negative correlation with the field there, which is nice. And also, if he does end up pulling that little bit of ownership, he kind of just opens the door for you to do whatever you want with a lot of your lineups. He's going to make it so you can get to a little bit more San Francisco because you have a low-owned pitcher. He's going to make it so you just get a different build than a lot of people are going to. So right now, the way things look with the ownership where it is, I anticipate getting a good amount of Jackson Kowar here. It's risky. It's certainly not safe by any stretch. Definitely could just get blown up right out of the gate. But I do think that I like the way my lineups look, and I like getting him if the ownership is going to be low.
Well, this is making me feel a lot better about the way that my Sims are running today. So we're off to a good start. I don't think we're going to be talking about Alex Wells. So let's talk a little bit about this Royals team, because I think that's the most interesting piece of it. We have Kansas City as the number 2 stack on the day and the number 2 negative leverage stack on the day. A lot of that being driven by Salvador Perez and Mondesi. They are pulling a combined 45.5% ownership, which is basically tied with the rest of the team, the other 7 guys combined. So How do you want to manage getting to the Royals today in a great matchup against Alex Wells?
Yeah, I think it's a really good matchup. We don't have a huge sample of Alex Wells in the major leagues, but so far it hasn't really been pretty. Against right-handed hitters in particular, 9.4% strikeout percentage, 270 expected ISO, 449 expected WOBA. Just sets up a really good spot for a right-handed heavy Kansas City lineup that is also not expensive at all. Like you said, you're getting a lot of ownership coming to Perez. You're getting a ton coming to Mondesi, who just should not be 4,400 batting cleanup here. Hunter Dozier projected for about 10% at 2,500 batting ninth. Would not be surprised if he actually ends up a little bit lower than that since he is batting ninth. But the bottom of this order, Olivares, Taylor, Dozier, these guys are all really cheap. You have Carlos Santana batting fifth at 2,900. Kind of surprised he's not pulling more ownership, but it sets up so even though Kansas City is projected to go a bit overowned, you can kind of mix and match your way through this lineup and save some ownership in there. In the crunch I ran earlier, I still wasn't getting to a ton of Kansas City just because there were so many low-owned teams that I do like on this slate. But I do think they offer a lot of value. It's a really high upside spot here. Certainly not going to fault anyone if they do get to Kansas City here, even at the relatively high ownership, because I do think that there's plenty of ways around it to where you can still get a low enough owned team.
I'm with you on that one. They grade out really well for me. Pretty far away from the Giants, but firmly my number two option. So I can't just dodge them altogether. It's too good of a matchup between Wells and the rest of the Orioles bullpen. And if it's just the fact that Mondesi and Perez are getting ownership, well, so be it. They deserve that ownership too, to a degree at least. Mondesi from the price, Salvador Perez from the fact that he might be the best power hitter in baseball right now. On the Baltimore side, so we have Baltimore overowned. They are not nearly as overowned as they were earlier today, but still overowned nonetheless. The third biggest negative leverage team on the slate. Has anything changed for you for Baltimore against Jackson Kowar? Because if he's really not owned, then the ownership is probably okay. Well, actually, that ownership would be a lot better if he was owned. Now I don't totally understand it. I don't really see why they're pulling as much ownership as they are.
They're cheap and they have a 5 implied run total. For overall in the majors this year, Kowar definitely has not been good. So I think it makes sense why they would get some ownership. In his 3 starts, he has a 16.3% strikeout percentage, 18.6% walk percentage, 6.41 xFIP. Yes, this is the guy that I anticipate my night revolving around. But it's you can clearly see the path to upside for the Orioles, but there would be a couple of things that make me hesitate. For one, you mentioned right now, we're not projecting much ownership to go to Kowar. So the Orioles lose, some appeal because they're not negatively correlating with him. But also this is a little bit weaker lineup than you normally get from Baltimore. Trey Mancini still not in the lineup. General soreness, much to the dismay of Kyle Farnsworth. Not sure if you saw that.
No, what happened?
Oh, so Mancini sat out yesterday for general soreness, which he has since clarified is an oblique issue. But the Orioles just announced that he sat for general soreness. And then Kyle Farnsworth tweeted something along the lines of, just saw a major league player today sitting out for general soreness. It's September. Everybody is sore. If you can't play through that, you don't belong in the major leagues. And Mancini was like the only person that missed. So he's just been getting lit up on Twitter for singling out the guy who just missed a season due to cancer for being out of a game in September when his team is 40 games under 500. And then he backpedaled too. Didn't even stand by it or anything. Said, I didn't say anything about Mancini. I wasn't talking about him, blah, blah, blah. I was just saying players in general. And I was like, no, you weren't. But anyway, so Mancini's still out today. You also don't have Ramon Urias, who is basically a league average hitter at shortstop. So the bottom of this order gets a little bit weaker than normal with Mateo, who is really, really fast, but I don't think expected to be a very good hitter. Jones, who's not one of their top hitting prospects, Kelvin Gutierrez in the revenge matchup against Kansas City, but a little bit weaker lineup for Baltimore makes it a little bit more difficult to stack. That being said, Mancini not being in the lineup does at least make it so you can get 1 through 5, which you couldn't if he was in. But a lot of it really is just going to come down to where the final ownership projections end up on Jackson Kowar for me.
As much as I want to keep talking, I need to make sure that I get into this Jeter drop. So I'm going to go ahead and I can't get into it.
What do you mean you can't get into it?
I clicked join drop, but there we go. 3 minutes, 26 seconds left. Got it. I clicked join drop 6 times. If anybody's looking to get into the Jeter drop, you might want to do that right now. 3 minutes to go on the next one, and you will make money if you buy it and want to sell it immediately. I don't have anything else for Baltimore or for Kansas City. I am not going to be getting to Baltimore given that ownership. And not that it's high, but it's just irrelevant to me today. And I'm going to work my way to Kansas City, probably have some 5-mans, but nothing too crazy.
Yep, pretty much where I'm at too. I think the most important part of this game for me ends up being Jackson Coe pitching, and hopefully Kansas City not hitting as well as they probably should.
Got more to talk about here that's relevant. Yankees and Blue Jays. Garrett Cole and Steven Matz. It's a 5.1 run implied total for the Yankees, 3.5 for the Blue Jays. Cole at 18% ownership. Matz unowned. I don't have anything to add for Matz. I got to 26% Cole in my sim, so I will happily be a little bit higher. I don't love the 11-8 price tag, and I don't love the matchup, but to me, he's still the overall best pitching option on the slate, and I'm happy to get over that 18% number.
In the crunch I ran before the show, I ended up right around that 18% mark. I would expect I get there again. Just kind of the more I looked at lineups and looked at some projections and stuff, I think it's going to be tough to get tons of Cole here just because of really Blake Snell, but then also just the fact that there's a lot of mid-range arms that look pretty good. And Cole is so expensive in this matchup at 11,800. It's a situation where if I get to Cole, I'm not going to be upset about it. He has the highest strikeout percentage on the slate by a wide margin, about 5 points higher than Blake Snell, who's second. He's capable of clearly just putting up a massive game against anyone, but you're paying for it. And this is a really tough matchup, both in terms of the Blue Jays being very good at hitting, but also not having a ton of strikeouts in their lineup, though this lineup is a bit weaker than normal. No George Springer. Jake Lamb, who I had no idea was on the Blue Jays, is batting eighth. So it's a little bit watered down lineup here, but still overall a pretty tough spot for Cole. So, I mean, obviously I like Garrett Cole, but I do think that I probably just end up around the field here because there are bats I want to pay for. There is cheaper pitching that I'll go to, and it is still a tough spot.
No Mats, correct?
Yeah, I don't really see a reason to get the Mats. Like there's a lot of pitchers in that price range, and a lot of them do have sort of, question marks, but I think most of them look a little bit better than Mats does. He's more expensive than a lot of them by, a few $100s, but then also you're just talking about a pitcher that doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He's going up against a right-handed heavy Yankees lineup. For the season, he's only struck out 19.7% of right-handed hitters. He's done a relatively good job of limiting production, 317 expected WOBA, 147 expected ISO, but he's just kind of towards the bottom of the list for me in terms of guys in that like $7,500 to $8,500 price range.
Now I think we need to talk about Yankees bats. We have them 7th on our top stack tool. Pretty positive leverage. So much so, in fact, that it's tied for the second best leverage mark on the slate. I have them as my number 10 overall stack, number 5 from leverage. I want to get to the Yankees because they're not owned, so I don't really have much else to add. They're an incredible offense. This is not the lineup that I was totally expecting. It's a little bit weaker, but I don't care. I will happily roster the Yankees today.
Yeah, same boat. No Joey Gallo is a little disappointing since even though it's lefty-lefty, he hits lefties well, but you still have a cheap Luke Voit. Aaron Judge and Stanton are relatively expensive. LeMahieu's pretty cheap. Urshela's pretty cheap. Bottom of the order gets kind of scary. Like you could certainly see some pinch hitting later in the game too, with Joey Gallo having not started, with Gary Sanchez having not started. So a little bit of pinch hit risk there. But again, that's not even something that I think is particularly actionable. It's more so just be aware that you might be pissed off with the lower end of your Yankee stack in the 7th inning or so. But the top of this order, 1 through 6, I think still looks pretty good here. I think Matz is pretty much an average pitcher, but anytime you're getting the Yankees at low ownership in an average spot, I think the upside speaks for itself.
I agree. Is there any upside to going to Blue Jays bats? I don't really see it. If Cole were getting more ownership, I think you can make a case for it just because of their raw talent in general. They profile well for power. If you're going to get to Garrett Cole, it's probably going to be from long balls. But he's not really getting all that much ownership, and I don't really want to attack the best pitcher on the slate.
Yeah, same boat for me. If the slate were smaller and or he were getting more ownership, I'd be more interested. As is, if you want to try and guess who hits a home run off Garrett Cole, by all means. I think Corey Dickerson at 2,600 is probably the easiest sell for me because he is leading off. He is left-handed. You and I have talked about it before that pretty much any hitter around 2,500 leading off has some semblance of merit. So Dickerson, if you really wanted to work a Blue Jay bat in there, I think makes some sense just as a low owned value option. But the size of the slate and the fact that Cole's priced up, so he's not getting that much ownership, makes it so Toronto's not really that appealing to me.
I'm done on this one. I don't have anything else to add. It's an interesting game. Like the Yankees as a whole, batting and pitching, not owned as much as I was expecting them to be.
Same. Someone in chat said Gallo doesn't hit lefties well. He hits them as well as he hits righties, which is slightly less than Dave Kingman-ish. If I remember correctly, Dave Kingman was a good hitter, and Joey Gallo was certainly a good hitter.
Yeah. I don't really know what else to say about something like that, but we have the ability to look at this sort of stuff. So let's just, for sake of argument, take a peek at what one Joey Gallo's weighted runs created plus is this year against lefties. Well, against righties, 120. Do you have any idea what it is against lefties? Just this season?
No, but I do see his ISO and his WOBA, so I know it's a lot.
121, 1 point higher than it is against righties. Let's just, to be nice, to be fair, maybe it's a small sample. We'll check out, 2020 is not going to be the best example in the world, but we'll go to 2019. 2020 doesn't count. COVID,
He has a 299 ISO and that's against. Yeah, no, he has a 299 ISO and a 357 WOBA against lefties since 2018.
I was going to say in 2019, he had a 190 weighted runs created plus in a relatively small sample size, but 124 against lefty or against righties. So he's just good. There's no real way around it. Did I get the Jeter? Did you get the Jeter?
No, it was 5,000.
Ooh, 16,923. Just a bit outside. Don't think there's going to be enough people falling off for that one.
Yeah,
We'll keep it moving to Red Sox and Rays. This game is a coin flip, 4.8 runs on both sides. Eduardo Rodriguez and Drew Rasmussen, and neither guy's getting any ownership. I think Erod probably deserves a little bit, but nothing too crazy. These are sub 10 percenters for me, but I do have a lot of respect for both.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I was at as well. Rodriguez at 9K, you certainly could make the case for him at low ownership. For example, right now on DraftKings, we have Blake Snell at 9,200 pulling 52% ownership. Erod coming in $200 less at 2% ownership. Certainly one of those situations where that's too big of a gap if you're just looking at those two players and ignoring everything else about your lineup. If you need, a low owned pivot, it's pretty safe to say it's profitable to take 25-1 odds on Erod versus Blake Snell. But at the same time, there's just going to be, I think, better spots that I take where normally I just end up rostering Snell and don't really need Erod's low ownership. It's a tough matchup. It's a park upgrade for Tampa Bay going into Boston. Rodriguez has been good this year, at least in terms of his underlying numbers. ERA is a bit elevated at 4.88, but 3.44 xFIP, 27.5% strikeout percentage. It really just comes down to, if I'm going to roll the dice on pitching, there are enough other low-owned guys that are a little bit less expensive that I can go to. And if I'm going in that price range and don't need to save ownership, then Blake Snell, I think, is just clearly projects better than Rodriguez.
How are you feeling about the bats here? I have the Rays 7th. I have the Red Sox 18th, but they're both slightly under-owned. We have Tampa Bay 5th, pretty sizable positive leverage. We have Boston a little bit further down, pulling no ownership at all. Do we get to bats on both sides?
I'm most interested in the Tampa Bay side, just because I think that lineup's a little bit deeper right now. They have a lot of right-handed power here that can take advantage of hitting in Boston. You also get some value with Yandy Diaz batting cleanup at 3,800, Luplow at 2,700, Margot at 2,600, batting 5th and 6th. Certainly some pinch hit risk, particularly for Luplow, because you don't have Meadows in the lineup. We don't have Lau in the lineup. This is another spot where I really don't understand why Lau isn't in the lineup. I don't understand why Gallo is not in the lineup. Both of these guys hit left-handed pitching really well. And especially in the case of Erod, he's actually been worse against lefties than righties. So I was actually hoping Lau would be in the lineup, but he's not. Either way, plenty of power here. They can take advantage of the monster and not super expensive and not getting much ownership. So I think Tampa Bay looks like one of the stacks I'll get to quite a bit here, even though it's clearly not a very good spot against Erod. I think the ceiling is still there.
Yeah, I like it. I'm really surprised to see the lack of ownership on, I guess, both teams. Really surprised to see it against the Red Sox. Like an unowned Devers in this spot. I don't care that he's 6,200. An unowned Schwarber. I don't care that he's 5,600. Like, these are the guys that I think are really easy to fill out a lineup with. If you're trying to buy power, there are a lot worse places to go than Boston.
Yeah, agreed. You do probably get Kike back today as well. I just think, I don't even want to say the matchup's worse. It's just like, we're only expecting Rasmussen to go, 4 to 5 innings. Then you get Tampa Bay's bullpen behind them. I kind of just think there's more add-on upside for the Tampa Bay side than for the Boston side. Also, the pricing is not quite as favorable. Schwarber at 5,600, Devers up to 6,200. The guys that are cheap are typically the guys you don't really want anyway. So I think it's just gonna be a little bit more difficult to get to Boston. But again, the ceiling is certainly still there.
Yeah, I don't think they're a team that I would just be jamming in by any means. I think they work really well as like the last guy into your lineup or last two guys into your lineup, just because there's no ownership there. If you're going to any sort of chalky anything, filling out with the Boston Red Sox makes it a lot easier to just grab the rest of that lineup and not be as chalky as you were before. I don't have anything else for Boston or Tampa Bay.
Me neither.
It should be good. I was gonna. You beat me to who cares about strikeouts? That would not be a stat that I'd be looking at.
Yeah, no, I was laughing at the Chris Bryant comment.
I didn't see it. Let me look. Oh, that was good. It's been a while for that one.
Yeah.
Joke's still giving though.
Having a good year this year, so that aged better than it looked like it was going to for a bit.
It should have. I mean, it was a preposterous take, not from you previously.
Obviously.
All right. Schedule for the rest of the day. Pretty easy. 6 p.m. MLB Live before lock. Greg and Eric. So they're coming up immediately after us. Same stream, so you don't have to do anything. You just stay here. MLB ownership free today. We're going to reference it a lot throughout this show. Look for the link from Nightbot or head to awesemo.com. Browse to it directly if you'd like. All right. Braves and Gnats. I was hoping that crunch would be done. It's not. Doesn't matter. Not a lot of changes to that Nats lineup. 5.4 run implied total for the Braves, 3.6 for the Nats. Max Fried, Paolo Espino. Nothing's changed for me. We've got Max Fried at 30% ownership, and to me, that is too high.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's fine. He's definitely one of the mid-range pitchers that stands out in terms of talent and matchup. Pretty average matchup against the Nats. Fried's a good pitcher, 24% strikeout percentage this season, 3.51 xFIP, just shy of a home run per 9 innings. Price is about where it should be, only a 3.5 implied run total for the Nats. I don't have any issue with Fried. It's just that I think in terms of range of outcomes in tournaments, there's not that big of a difference between him and some of these other mid-range guys. For example, he's got about a 1.5. He's like 1.5 times as likely to be a top 2 pitcher as James Caprillion, who's $800 less, but Fried getting almost 3 times the ownership. There's just a lot of situations like that where I think he's just pulling a little bit more ownership than he deserves. And I think that in tournaments, while I like Fried, especially across 150 lineups, I'm more likely to just be moving some of his exposure to some of these other guys that have similar ranges of outcomes.
Yeah, I don't see it. I'm not even totally sure why it's getting as high as it is. I guess just because it's in a dead zone, but I don't want that much Max Fried. And I like Max Fried too. That's the thing. Maybe I'm just not down on the Nats as much as it seems like the public is. Any Espino for you against the Braves?
No. He's pitched better lately, but not a spot where I'm looking to get to him.
Are you looking to get against him? Because I have the Braves as my number 3 stack. They are 6th in leverage for me. They are the 6th highest owned, or the sixth stack in top stacks. Neutral ownership. I would like to get to a little bit more Atlanta than we're showing, however.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. Jorge Soler really stands out at his $3,800 price tag. I don't know why that salary is not moving, but he's facing a pitcher in Espino who, again, he has had a few good starts recently, but overall this season, 22.5% strikeout percentage against righties, 265 expected ISO, 346 expected WOBA. Soler against right-handed pitching this year, 204 expected ISO, 339 expected WOBA. Just sets up, I think, well for him. Clearly good spot for Albies and Freeman and Riley as well. Duvall and Darno are inexpensive as well. I think this is just another high upside lineup that has a nice balance of guys you can pay up for, but also salary savings as well.
Yeah, that's the prices aren't a problem. The positions aren't really a problem. I think it's just very easy to do. Do we want to roster Nationals against a 30% owned Max Fried today?
It's actually a good question. I didn't look at that earlier to see how much of them I'd gotten to. Doesn't look like, so in the crunch I did earlier, and again, this was before lineups or anything came out, I wasn't getting to much. And the reason I think it's relevant is just because, again, I weight the opposing pitcher's ownership. It's part of what I use. But it's just, one metric. And so right now, at least or earlier, at least, just kind of looked like that wasn't enough to really push the Nats up for me on a slate where there are so many low owned teams that are just, better offenses in better spots than going up against Fried. Another situation where I think if the slate were a little bit smaller or there were just better pitching on the slate that I didn't want to take hitters against, the Nats would start to look a little bit better. They are cheap. $2,800 Lane Thomas leading off, Carter Kieboom hitting fifth at $2,800. Both, pretty good price tags. And then obviously Soto and Bell are fine against pretty much anyone, but 24 offenses to choose from. Having a hard time getting to the Nats.
Yeah, they rank 19th for me out of 24. So it's not all that appealing, but the lack of ownership, the price tags, the Fried ownership, I don't mind manually making some adjustments there if I need to get a couple 5-mans of the Nats, because I think there's some utility today. Nothing too crazy, though. Nothing too crazy. All right. Cubs and Reds. 4.1 run implied total for the Cubs, 5.2 for the Reds. Adrian Sampson and Wade Miley. No ownership going to Sampson. I don't get the sense we're going to talk about him. 8% ownership going to Wade Miley. I had him at 4. I don't really have much to say here. That 8 feels about right.
Yeah, that's about where I came in as well. In the crunch earlier, 8.7%. So seems about right to me. He's just another guy, kind of. He's a little bit overpriced in terms of his talent level from a DFS standpoint. Only an 18.3% strikeout percentage this year, but 4.06 xFIP is fine. 0.79 home runs per 9. The Cubs strike out a lot, so that does increase his ceiling a little bit. Reasonably low, 4.4 implied run total. Just not someone that I'm expecting to get a lot of, but in 150 lineups, I'm sure I'll be around the field, or I would expect to be around the field. If I'm playing 3 max or something like that, I wouldn't think he's getting there.
Okay. And no Sampson?
No.
Okay.
No, he went, in addition to, just not thinking he's good, 32 pitches his last time out, September 2nd, 37, 34. I just don't see a reason to get there. Like, if I'm going to that price range, I'm just betting on the talent of Jackson Kowar, basically.
I don't blame you. I don't want to bet on Adrian Sampson for anything today. I'd short him. If Jock Market were our sponsor today, I would say that you should short Adrian Sampson, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Cincinnati is 3rd in our top stack tool. I have them 9th and pretty negative leverage. I need you to break the tie here. How do you feel about Cincinnati? Honestly, I assume you're more with the top stack tool than me, because it doesn't look correct to me on the surface.
Yeah, I'm more with the top stack tool. Again, I don't anticipate Sampson going too deep into this game, so I don't want to get too bogged down in what he's done in his career, but it's not pretty. 192 expected ISO to lefties, 302 to righties going back to 2018, 415 expected WOBA to righties, 331 to lefties, and you've got a pretty good Reds lineup, at least 1 through 5. You have the very, very inexpensive Tyler Naquin at 2,900, and then, India, Castellanos, Votto, Moustakas, these guys all can do damage. I think that the ownership, I'm more in line with the top stack tool. Like, if you just told me Cincinnati is the 3rd highest team in top stack percentage, I would kind of give you a weird look. But when you tell me that there's just like a million teams between basically 4% and 7%, and Cincinnati happens to be the highest of the group, that would make more sense to me. Like, I think that, like, I'm not going to argue, if they're 3rd or middle of the pack, kind of, because all these teams are just jammed together. I do think it's a pretty appealing spot for them, though.
Okay. Yeah, on the surface, that's how I feel. Like, they have a 5+ run implied total against Adrian Sampson today. It's not like I don't get it, but I just have this team grading out pretty poorly as a team in general. Kyle Farmer, Tucker Barnhart, Max Schrock, pitcher spot. Like, those 4 spots are all basically like 20% below average or in that general area. Naquin, I understand why he's getting the ownership. That doesn't really help me from a GPP perspective. I don't think that I want to go to all that much Cincinnati, but it's certainly not a spot that's going to make me feel good about that take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm there with you. The only guy really getting ownership, though, is Naquin. It's just another team that I think their ownership has come up a bit since this morning. Their top stack percentage has gone down a bit, I'm assuming, with the release of that lineup. But yeah, it's just another one of these teams that I think you're going to have so many people going to giant stacks and then behind them going to Kansas City. I think, I said it this morning, when I look at a slate like this, it doesn't always work out this way, but my overall strategy is that I'm typically going to end up a bit concentrated at pitcher, and I'm going to be kind of spreading things out more across offenses, because there's a lot of very similar offenses that aren't getting much ownership. Cincinnati certainly falls into that bucket for me.
How much Lat Murray do you have in best ball?
Guessing too much based on you asking me this question.
He is no longer with the New Orleans Saints.
Good. I haven't been drafting him lately. I was drafting him a lot early.
Well, got to figure he ends up somewhere. So
yeah, I mean, hopefully he goes to the Ravens.
Yeah, there you go. Cubs bats against Miley. I don't have much to say here, other than the fact that they're not getting any real ownership, and like Wilson Contreras is hitting leadoff.
Yeah, sorry, I was catching up on the Murray thing. I do have a lot of Kamara. I've been drafting him ahead of Dalvin Cook, so that probably bodes well. Yeah, so the Cubs, I think it's an okay spot against Miley. He, doesn't give up a lot of power. He's an okay pitcher, but you do have pretty good pricing here. Wilson Contreras leading off the catcher is valuable at 4,400. Frank Schwindell's been hitting very well. He's one of these guys where it's just like, he doesn't project to be a particularly good major league player. He's 28 or 29 years old. He's never had sustained success in the majors, but also guys just figure it out sometimes, especially with the increase in technology and what they're able to do, to improve themselves. So at 3,500, still certainly willing to take some shots on him. Hap and Wisdom have some power. Not my favorite stack by any stretch, but another, I think, kind of just middle of the road team that I could see getting a little bit of exposure to, especially if Miley's projected ownership were to come up.
500. Never mind. 601 concurrent viewers, 103 likes. I appreciate the gusto, guys. We got to the triple digits, so I don't have to complain too much, but I think we could do a little bit better. Hit that thumbs up if you can. It really helps us out a ton. Doesn't cost you guys anything to do. So we'll head on to Brewers and Phillies. 4.3 run implied total for Milwaukee. 4.3 run implied total for Philadelphia. Eric Lauer and Aaron Nola. And both guys, Brewers and Phillies, for Lauer and Nola, single digits in ownership. How do you feel about, we got to start with Aaron Nola, 10,600, a decent matchup against Milwaukee. This isn't the strongest lineup in the world. Why is Aaron Nola under 10% owned today?
I think it's just kind of difficult to get there. In the crunch I did earlier, I got 14%. At the time, we had him projected for like 11 or 12. I think it's just kind of a mediocre spot, and he's relatively expensive compared to some of the other arms. Like, he's $1,400 more than Blake Snell. He's a lot more than Zach Gallen. You have just an abundance of other pitchers in that $7,500 to $8,500 range, even if no one particular one is getting tons of ownership. That group is still pretty deep. So that combined with, it is a difficult park to pitch in. He's been worse outside of Philly for years. The Brewers lineup is not bad. They do have Yelich and Garcia in there today, and Narvaez is in. It's a pretty formidable lineup by Milwaukee standards. So to me, it's just kind of a neutral spot. I expect to get around the field, if maybe not a little bit higher on Nola, but it's not really a priority for me.
Okay. Yeah, he showed up in 10% of my sims, so I didn't really have much to add, but just felt weird, 8%, but it is what it is.
Somebody said he's 9K on FanDuel. That looks good.
Yeah, it's a much better price tag because Garrett Cole's 11.3, Snell is 10.1, Logan Webb is 9,700, Max Fried is 9,300. So yeah, Nola looks a lot better there. So does Zach Gallen though at 7,900. So there's also that. I don't really have anything to say about an $8,800 Eric Lauer. Do you?
No, he's just sort of a guy. He has struck out 24% of righties this year, but I think the price tag is just a little bit more expensive than it should be. He's a decent pitcher, 178 expected ISO to righties, 313 expected WOBA. The Phillies lineup is not the worst, but not the best either. Real Muto, Segura, Harper, McCutchen. We know what those guys can do. Matt Vierling has hit the hell out of the ball since coming up. I don't anticipate that to continue, but it's been the case so far. Then, everything kind of drops off with Galvis, Torreyes, Marchand, and then the pitcher spot. So it's not the best Phillies lineup. If you shaved like $1,000 or $1,500 off Lauer, I would certainly be interested. But as is, it's just really tough for me to pay that salary.
Are you looking to roster the bats in this game, either side?
Not really. Still a tough spot for Milwaukee. I still have respect for Nola, and he's not really pulling ownership, so you're not getting that bump there. As far as the Phillies go, I think that's a little bit easier sell. They're another one of these teams, like a 3.5% chance of being the top stack, just sort of lumped in with a lot of other teams, only projected for about 1.5% ownership. McCutchen, I think, stands out at 3,800. I mentioned Vierling, 2,300, certainly a outfield option in tournaments. Real Muto leading off with catcher, and now on DraftKings also first base eligibility, but another leadoff catcher that offers some value. But in the context of the entire slate, I think it's tough to get to a lot of Philly when there's just a lot of other teams that are going to get similar ownership and just look a little bit better.
Yeah, I got him 14th. So basically the middle of the pack. I got him 14th in leverage too. So I don't really have much to add. If you get to Real Muto, great. Enjoy it. Same for Bryce Harper if you want him.
Yes.
And on the Brewer side, I don't really see the utility. They don't look all that good. I got them 22nd of 24 teams today. Any Brewers?
No, I'm good on the Brewers.
Yeah. Okay. I have nothing else here for Brewers and Phillies.
Me neither.
Perfect time to tell you guys about our promo codes. Now, you've heard me mention WR a lot. That will get you our season-long and best ball draft kit for 35% off. Nope, 33% off. But I was close. Those numbers are in the ballpark of each other. It's the same projections and tools and analysis that we use for our NFL DFS package. But now you get Draft Wingman, our best ball rankings and stacking guide, the trade value chart, and more. It's going to be less than $10 for this package. That's a great deal, guys. Anything under $10. I mean, we're talking about like a Starbucks order. I don't know, maybe my Starbucks order. I don't know. Jordan probably gets like $30 worth of Starbucks when he gets it DoorDash to his house, even though there's like a Starbucks underneath him or something along those lines. Anyway, you guys don't care. Use the promo code WR. But we got a new promo code. I didn't tell you guys this one earlier today. The promo code is DAK, D-A-K. Get a $1 Awesemo NFL Express weekly package because football is back. We want to get you guys in the door. You can get our Express package. We're doing a lot more for our Express package than we used to. So you're able to try it out for just $1. It's great. You get player and ownership rankings. You get our chat. So our expert Slack. It's a good time in there sometimes. NFL times, definitely. NBA times, definitely. And everything that we have to offer for showdown and single game contests. That's player projections, ownership projections, top stack tool. You got to love it. Plus, we're going to be covering some tiers. So if you're a tiers player on DK, lucky you. Use the promo code DAK, like Dak Prescott, DAK. Get our Express weekly package for $1. This is valid through Monday, September 13th. So make sure you're getting in here. All righty. On to Cardinals and Dodgers. 4-run implied total for the Cards, 5 for the Dodgers. J.A. Happ and probably Mitch White. Doesn't feel like a pitching game for me today.
Really? What about that doesn't feel like a pitching game to you? Yeah, not looking at the pitching. We do have Corey Knebel opening ahead of Mitch White. Not that really matters. It does just make White less appealing than he would have been.
Yeah. So I don't really have a J.A. Happ thought. I don't have a Mitch White thought or anybody thought for the Dodgers or Cardinals pitching. I don't really have any thoughts for the Cardinals bats. I do, however, need to talk at least a little bit about the Dodgers bats. They are my number 4 stack overall, but showing up a little bit over-owned. Steven Souza in the lineup for the Dodgers today. Talk to me about LA.
I think it's a good spot against Happ. Steven Souza is 2K on DraftKings, so that is a value option. They're just underpriced in general, and I think that's why you're getting the ownership going there. Right now, we have them with about a 7% chance of being the top stack, about 8% aggregate ownership. So not going drastically over-owned. And, again, it is a good spot against Happ. He's given up plenty of power to right-handed hitters this year. 229 expected ISO, 364 expected WOBA, sub 5K Trey Turner, almost 4K Justin Turner, Chris Taylor at 3,900. I don't know who was supposed to pitch for the Cardinals today, but DraftKings didn't think it was J.A. Happ. So you really, really good pricing here on the Dodgers. Yeah. They're going to be popular, but again, there's still enough ways. They're not getting crazy amounts of ownership. There's enough ways you can roster them and still get some lower owned bats in there. So in the run I did earlier today, I was still getting, pretty healthy amounts of Dodgers here in a good spot.
Yeah, look, Trey Turner and Justin Turner should get 15% ownership when they're hitting leadoff and second and they're sub 5K. And no part of that is shocking to me at all. Albert Pujols is terrible, but he's 2,700, so he's pretty easy to roster. I like getting to Corey Seager in a lefty-lefty matchup if no one's going to roster him. I like the Dodgers a little bit. It's probably a little too much ownership, but unquestionably, this is a team that I want to have shares of for tonight.
They're just one of those teams, too, where I'm not as concerned about the ownership because the only guys pulling it for one are Trey and Justin Turner. Next, you have Mookie Betts at 8%, who's not in the lineup, so we need an ownership update or I need to refresh.
He's not in the lineup.
Well, I know he's not in the lineup.
We also have an ownership update 3 minutes ago. So
yeah, I just saw that. So
yeah.
So now Steven Souza pulling 12%, Justin Turner at 13%, Trey at 20%. Other than that, everyone's 9% or below. So there's that. But then also when you look at Trey Turner and Justin Turner, I think they're both arguably the best options at their positions, at least outside of Coors Field. So that makes me a little bit more willing to get there too. And, third base isn't the best position. Second base isn't the best position. So, just typically a little bit more willing to eat the chalk on guys like that than I would be if there were outfielders where there's, 100 guys that have the same range of outcomes they do.
All righty. I have nothing else here unless some Cardinals bats are standing out to you. Tyler O'Neill's pulling 12% ownership. So maybe we need to talk about that.
Who?
Tyler O'Neill.
I mean, he's 3,600 batting third and he has power.
Yeah.
He's fine. I think Dylan Carlson's underpriced as well. As a whole, I don't see a whole lot from the Cardinals that stands out. And both of those guys are outfielders, which again, it just typically drives my ownership, my personal exposure to them down a bit because there are so many options.
I don't know why this is coming up, but Butthole Jenkins says 5 guys is better than In and Out. Do you have a dog in that fight?
I've never had In and Out.
Okay. I would prefer to eat an In-N-Out burger over a Five Guys burger, but I think that I won the day either way if I have either one of those things.
Yeah, like I like Five Guys, and I've heard good things about In-N-Out, just have never been.
I'm not like the only place I ever want to be in the world is In-N-Out, but if I am in California, I am going to an In-N-Out to enjoy at least one, if not 2 cheeseburgers. It's just happening.
Yeah.
Jordan deleted his message. Team In-N-Out, I guess, Jordan. Yeah. Okay. Just checking. You're just nodding over there. I have no idea what you're up to. It's just the top of your head. It's crazy. All right. Astros and Mariners. 4.8 run implied total for the Astros, 3.8 for the Mariners. Jake Odorizzi and Logan Gilbert. Odorizzi, 13% owned, a little bit more reasonable than we saw earlier today. No ownership going to Logan Gilbert. I'm not a huge fan of getting to 13% Odorizzi at all, but I don't think it's like totally outlandish. I'm just more of like probably like 5 to 10% guy.
That's where I came in earlier too. And it's just reflected in the top pitchers tool on DraftKings. Like you look and, granted, all these guys aren't in the same price range. We can just use the ones that are. James Caprillion, 7,800, 10% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Odorizzi, 7,500, 9% chance. Miley, 8,200, basically a 9% chance. One of those guys is getting 13% ownership. One is getting 6, one is getting 8. I think I just kind of end up flattening them out. And that's what happened in my run earlier. So, getting a little bit less on Odorizzi, getting a little bit more on Caprillion and Miley than we have them currently projected for. No real strong take. I understand why Odorizzi is getting, why he's getting ownership. The Mariners have a 3.8 implied run total. They aren't the best lineup. Odorizzi has been pretty bad this year as well, though. I think he's priced about where he should be. 21.8% strikeout percentage, 4.77 xFIP, 1.68 home runs per 9. It's just one of those, if he were projected for 6% and Caprillion were at 14, I would say, I think I'm going to get more Odorizzi and less Caprillion. As is, Odorizzi happens to be the one projected for more ownership.
So Carlos Manzo said, after the 5 guys in and out thing, said, I'll take 5 girls, which is whatever. But it did prompt me. If there was a 5 girls restaurant, what would they be serving? That'd be like veggie burgers, black bean burgers, tacos. Jordan, I hope that was live to everybody, please. If not, it's not as funny. But Jordan Klein, by the way, in my ear, in case everyone didn't hear it, said tacos. I mean, it would sell. It would probably become like a really popular place for college people to go. I don't think you're going to be able to turn that into fine dining, but I like the idea. Jordan, good work. Wilma, I can't say that out loud. Although I was in the ballpark here. Yeah, Aiden Jones is there. A lot of it.
They wouldn't know what they're serving.
Jordan, good work on tacos. Logan Gilbert for you, Adam.
He's good. The matchup sucks. The Astros are tough to strike out. They have a good lineup. Pretty much healthy. You have Bregman back. You have Kyle Tucker back. Almost a 5 implied run total here. In terms of talent, I think Gilbert is better than most guys around him. He's better than Miley. He's better than Lauer. He's better than Caprillion. But the matchup here is really, really tough, and that's going to make it difficult to get there, I think, at 8K. He's been good overall this season. 26% strikeout percentage, 3.95 xFIP, but pretty tough sell, I think, paying 8K for him against the Astros on a 12-game slate.
Chad is just lighting this one up now. I shouldn't have even said a single word, but sometimes you gotta. Oh yeah, join the drop. Appreciate you, Ryan Stubbs. Next drop. All right. Need to be in the top 750. Here we go again with the, no, this one doesn't work. Button press. I would really like to get one of these Jeters. I mean, obviously that goes without saying. Everybody likes
to buy one, right?
Free money. Well, I don't want to keep it. I want free money.
Right.
I need some ETH right now, so I need to swap this out. All righty. Bats. We had a conversation about the Astros earlier today. I think that we can continue to have it. They are my number 10 stack. I would have expected them to be a little bit higher than that. However, they are my number 1 leverage stack on the slate. If we look at the top stacks tool, Houston is the number 1 leverage stack on the slate per top stacks. So how much Houston do you want to get to against Logan Gilbert?
Yeah, so they're kind of just another one of these middle of the pack teams getting 1% ownership. I don't think the matchup is very good. I view them pretty similarly to Tampa Bay, where I have respect for Eduardo Rodriguez. I have respect for Logan Gilbert. I think both pitchers are good. They're not pitchers that I'm going in saying like, oh, I think there's a really good chance that these offenses, have success. But I do think the offenses are so talented that when they do have success, they just have the potential to completely blow up a slate and be tournament winning teams. And then they're not getting much ownership, which is always appealing. The Astros aren't exactly cheap. That should keep the ownership down as well. So, again, not a team I expect to go crazy with, but I do expect to be over the field at, 1 to 2% ownership.
Yeah, they're just easy to get to. And there's so much unrealized power in here. But the only guy that's pulling any ownership in our ownership model is Alex Bregman at 2.3%. The other 8 guys just don't have any. So, yeah, I want Astros on that day all the time. Like by default, probably blindly.
I was just kind of looking through, again, not to read too much into it because I didn't even have like the correct lineups or anything, but from what I had gotten earlier, and it just seemed like I was getting a lot of, 5 to 6% Astros guys, which perfectly fine with. Kind of tells me that if I'm playing 3 max, probably not a priority for me, but not going to be difficult to get, 2x the field on these guys.
Do we have any interest in Seattle against Odorizzi? I don't. Doesn't really feel like a spot for me.
Yeah, I don't have that much as a full stack. I do think if you wanted to go to like a $4,300 Mitch Haniger, I think that's an actively good play. Odorizzi does give up power, as I mentioned before. He also, for most of his career, has been a reverse splits guy. We've seen that in terms of power this year, 218 expected ISO to righties. Haniger's got plenty of it, and he's only 4,300. So he stands out to me from Seattle, but there are still a lot of really good outfield plays, and it can be pretty tough to get outfield one-offs because typically a lot of the hitters you want from your stack happen to be outfielders.
Jack Canterbury says, anybody else having a hard time entering contests on DraftKings? Got to hit that deposit button, buddy.
I wish I was.
You wish you got restricted?
Yeah.
Might want to go ahead and log in and put yourself on self-exclusion for like a week. Take a vacay.
Got to buy the dip.
All righty. Time to talk course. That's not where I typed the word Rockies. At least it wasn't in the chat. Rockies and Giants. 5-run implied total for the Rockies, 7 for the Giants. Chichi Gonzalez and Logan Webb. Chichi Gonzalez, not all that great of a pitcher. Logan Webb, pretty good, unowned. Can you get to him here in course?
To Chichi Gonzalez?
Yes.
No, I'm good.
No, to Logan Webb.
Okay, well, I just thought I heard Chichi's name. I was
reading. Well, you did.
Okay. Yeah, Webb, I think he's one of those guys where I think he's a fine play in tournaments. Like he's on DraftKings, he's 9,500. You have Blake Snell pulling all of the ownership at 9,200. If you just compare those two pitchers, like if you need a lower owned guy, Logan Webb gives you similar upside. Snell does have better strikeout stuff, but Webb comes in with a 27% strikeout percentage, 2.83 xFIP. He's having a very, very good year. He's also a sinker slider guy, so you don't have quite as many concerns for him in cores. Still not a place you want to pitch because of the altitude and the giant outfield where, pop-ups become singles and singles become doubles. But he's at least not someone that you really expect his stuff to have a big drop-off. But it still just comes back to he's relatively expensive. If I want to gamble on low-owned pitchers, there's no real shortage of guys that I can find that cost me less money. And I think in a lot of lineups, it's just going to be Snell projects better. I already have a bunch of 1% owned hitters. I don't really care about getting a lower projected Logan Webb just because he's low owned. So if you get to Webb, he's fine. He's a good pitcher. No issues there. The ownership is low, but again, I just don't think I end up with that much because of alternatives at cheaper price points.
Time to talk about the number one stack of the day. They are my top stack, 16.6% of the time. It's not even close, but we got them even higher on the website. 22% chance of being the top stack on DraftKings, 27% ownership share, which stands out a little bit. It's obviously a very sizable negative leverage mark. However, this is also the top value stack on the slate. They're incredibly cheap, very easy to get to. So you're getting the double dose. They're projected for 7 runs. They were going to be the number one stack, whether you added $1,000 to everybody's salary or not today. So how do we want to manage this team that is unquestionably the best option you can get to, but also in basically 27% of lineups right now?
Yeah. So typically for me in spots like this, like it's clearly the number one spot. They are basically 3 times any other team on the slate to be the top scoring stack, but still not going to be the top scoring stack 80% of the time. And they are projected to be owned by like 30% of the field. So it's one of those situations where it's just, there's a very, very good chance the team in first place at the end of the night has a 5-man Giant stack, especially with how cheap they are. But it's also, if you are stacking the Giants, so are so many other people that even if they end up being the winning team, it's very unlikely that it's you. Whereas if you go to some of these other teams, if they end up being the top scoring stack, yes, it's going to happen a lot less frequently, but you have a much better chance of making real money if they do come through. So typically for me in spots like that, I'm still going to be using Giants bats, just not as much as the field. They're still going to fit in on teams where, I have low owned bats, I have low owned pitchers. For example, I mentioned at the top, if Jackson Kowar continues to be project for, 6-7% ownership, it's going to let me get a little bit more San Francisco just because he is different and I can then take on a little bit more hitter exposure. But in the crunch I did earlier, I was coming in around half the field, had like 18 to 20% Brandon Belt. I think he's a really good option. He's also projected for like 40% ownership right now. Kind of just the same thing across the board. Like I'm getting to them to a point where if they have good games, I'm not going to be drawing dead because they do fit into a lot of my lower owned lineups, but I just can't get as much as the field because, kind of the way I've put it before is if I create 1,000 lineups and then I start going through and trying to play the ones that are, the best combination of projection and ownership or whatever metrics you want to use, I just end up not having You're not having 50 Giants stacks, which is basically what I would need out of 150 lineups to be at the field. They end up getting filtered out enough. So they are great values. Certainly should be stacking them in cash. Basically the pricing is messed up. It's a very good spot. But I just have a very difficult time getting to a 30% owned stack in baseball on a 12-game slate.
Pricing's an embarrassment for today.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It creates a worse product, plain and simple.
It makes it does kind of make tournaments like, I don't even know if it's not more winnable is not the right word, but like I kind of like that it forces ownership up because that's just a lower percentage of the field in a highly volatile sport playing the teams that I want to play. But at the same time, it's
better for us.
Yeah, but at the same time, it also just makes it so like a very high percentage of the time, 30% of the field is just like it's just those guys competing for first and also in cash because they all have the same team. But it makes it like over the course of a season, I think you're going to get first place more often on slates like this, but it also just sets up, it kind of just, ruins the pricing. Like it would be more fun if the pricing were how it's supposed to be. And I can like make a decision on, do I play Jackson Kowar and, some other bad pitcher and stack the Giants, whereas here it's like, so I could just play Blake Snell and Zach Gallen and stack the Giants. Like it's,
you could take the 2 highest projected pitchers and stack the Giants in course today. And I don't think that would be all that much of an issue. Let me just look at it for right now.
Buster Posey is hitting third on a team with a 7.3 implied run total. He costs the same as Wilson Contreras, who on a team with a run total 3 runs lower.
I'm going to run a crunch with a 5-man Giants stack and lock Cole and Snell, which I think we agree are their 2 best options today, just from a raw points perspective.
From raw points, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll say, I think the 2 best options are Gallen and Snell.
Yeah. But like, if you have all the money in the world, then you take the points. So Cole, Snell, a 5-man Giants stack. Josh Van Meter, not necessarily somebody that I want to have a ton of, but Mondesi and Steven Souza is the number one lineup that I can make at that point in time. Obviously, you can drop down from Cole if you want to and free up a couple extra $1,000 and then be fully loaded in this stack. Like if I take Cole out, I get to Snell and Gallen, obviously, and then the rest of the lineup is absolutely stacked. You get to Tatis if you want him in one of these lineups. Like, what are we doing here? Soler, Arozarena, and Mondesi. Like, Mondesi showing up in everything because of his stupid price tag for today. I mean, that's just fully broken. You're getting the best, like, clear across the board. I got nothing else to say here. The bigger question then is, what do we do with the Rockies in course today? Because they are not owned. Yeah,
I still didn't get to much of them. They aren't popular, but they are still getting a little bit more ownership than teams like Houston, like Boston, not Tampa Bay, but other teams in that range more than the Yankees. And I think it is a really difficult matchup against Webb. You can always make the case to go to whichever team isn't getting ownership in Coors because it is still Coors Field, but Webb's been very, very good this year. Like I said before too, sinker slider guys should play fine in Coors. The Rockies strike out a lot less at home. They hit better as you would expect, but with all the other low-owned options on the slate, I just still have a tough time getting to the Rockies.
I agree. They're 15th for me. I don't have anything to add for Colorado, which is just weird. Do I need to get a Moon Gang? Are you paying attention to this?
I'm not buying anything.
Okay. It's just every day is a new thing. I do like them. How bad's gas? It's not ideal. All right. We are almost at the, I don't know what point of this is, the 4/5 mark since we started at 4:45. We're getting there. We got 3 more games to go. So I do have to give at least a little bit of a plug to the presenting sponsor of this show, and that would be Odds Shopper. If you are betting on sports, and honestly, we talk about it a lot, so I hope that you are, you should use Odds Shopper. You should never be in a situation to not get a good line, or at least not get the best line that's available for you. Odds Shopper lays that all out for you, whether that's sides and totals, player props, player futures, team futures, anywhere you're going, we have it at Odds Shopper. You can set up notifications for line movement, which will help you out a ton. You can get expected ROI and expected win percentage numbers on all of the MLB player props that exist. It's totally based on the projections that we have for DFS, but it's there for sports betting. You could sort by expected ROI, click the line that is best, and move on and make your bets. It's that simple. If you're betting on sports at all, Odds Shopper should be the first place that you're going. We have 2 super chats to touch on. First one from Pedro Ortiz. So Pedro, thank you so much. Said, what up, fellas? I'm doing the 3-game late night slate. Any tips? Thank you for all the work that you do. So I'm guessing I honestly don't know it off the top of my head. So let me look at it quickly.
It's the A's game, the D-backs game, and the Padres game.
Okay, so it's 3. I didn't know if Coors was going to be involved or not. Are you sure it's all 4?
It's 3.
Rangers. Okay, well, we just don't have it updated in top stacks. So we're about to talk about those 3 games, that's for sure. So you're going to get a little bit more out of this as we keep moving. In terms of top stacks here, probably going to be looking at something like the Padres or the Diamondbacks, just based on the way that I'm looking at it. From a pitching perspective, I don't even know who plays.
Gallen and Snell are going to get 1,000,000% ownership.
That's a good point. So how do you approach stuff like that? 3-game slate. You know that Zach Gallen and Blake Snell are going to pull an absolute ton of ownership. What do you do differently?
Stack the Rangers, stack the Angels, and play James Caprillion. It's just naturally the weight on negative correlation with the pitching just plays up more because the opportunity cost is lower. Like, for example, like you said, we don't have the top stacks tool updated for that slate, but let's say the Rangers go from, on the main slate, they have a 2% chance of being the top stack, to on this slate, they have a 15% chance of being the top stack because there's only 6 teams. So their top stack percentage is going to look better. They're still probably not going to pull much ownership because everyone's rostering Zach Gallen. So now they're suddenly going to look like an under-projected team against a pitcher getting a lot of ownership. So they're going to look really good there. It's still makes it a low probability spot because Gallen's probably going to have a good game, but there's just the payouts become a lot bigger on a slate like that, taking chances on a team like the Rangers or the Angels, whereas you have basically no interest in them on the main slate.
We also had another super chat from Jeff Williams. And Adam, I might need your help translating this. Are you ready?
Yeah.
This is jokes aside, like maybe you'll get it. Do worry more or less in a contest like the 777 on DK. For example, the Giants. I assume it's do you worry about ownership more?
Yeah,
or
I
less
think that's what he was asking about. I treat it the same. I mean, if you're playing that, you should have the role for it. So we're assuming that, you're not like min cashing still doesn't matter. It's the same thing. You're trying to win a tournament. It's a smaller field. So you could it's a smaller field. So if you assume the Giants are going to be 30% owned, it's obviously a smaller number of lineups you're competing against, but chalk also ends up being higher owned in that tournament. So if they're going to be 30% in the $18, they're probably even higher in that. And it's still a top heavy tournament that, again, if you're playing it, you should be playing to win it. If you can't, then you should play a lower stakes tournament. So I would still be very cognizant of the ownership on the Giants.
Let's say it's today. Let's say you're in it for one lineup. Is there any chance you're playing the Giants?
As a 5-man? No.
Yes.
No, I mean,
straight zero for me. Like it's zero. There's no chance whatsoever I would have a 5-man Giant stack.
Yeah, I mean, like my top ranked lineup earlier had Brandon Belt, but it was a Yankee stack. It would, looking at what I did earlier, it would be a Yankee stack. Obviously, stuff has changed since then, but yeah, I mean, I think I made like 1,100 lineups earlier when I was just kind of trying to see how things would look. My first 5-man Giant stack was my 32nd lineup.
Okay. Yeah, I would not be getting to the Giants. All right. Appreciate the super chats, guys. Diamondbacks and Rangers, Zach Gallen, Spencer Howard. Gallen, 41% owned for the Diamondbacks. Spencer Howard, not owned. I think the Gallen ownership is perfectly reasonable. I don't have anything to add here. He should be one of the main guys that you're getting to from a pitching perspective.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable too. I was pretty far underweight in the build that I made earlier, but again, that was just because I ended up getting so much Jackson Coher that I didn't really need the mid-range guys. So if you're someone that isn't playing as much Jackson Coher as me, or if I end up getting less, going forward, I do think Zach Gallen looks like one of the best mid-range options. He's similar to Snell in that I just think the combination of talent and matchup for him is just so much better than from most pitchers on this slate. He's got a 26.7% strikeout percent. Sorry, 26.7% strikeout percentage this season, 4.14 xFIP. Walk percentage is a bit higher than you would like. He gives up some power, but the Rangers offense is bad. We have the roof closed in Arizona. Pitcher spot, so the Rangers lose their DH as well, which means no Adolis Garcia in the lineup. It's a very, very good spot for Zach Gallen. I have no issues getting there. Just, again, be aware of the ownership elsewhere in your lineup. If you're stacking the Giants, you probably don't want the 40% owned pitcher to go with them.
Yeah, it's pretty easy there. What are you doing with the Arizona Bats against Spencer Howard? I have them 6th overall, 4th in terms of leverage. If I take a look at our top stack tool, we have Arizona quite a bit lower and over-owned. So what's the gap here? How do you feel?
Pretty neutral on them. 4.8 implied run total is fine. Howard has typically, going back to his time with the Phillies, he's been okay. First time through the order, he progressively gets worse. You haven't seen Texas running him too deep into the game, though. So I'm expecting that you get relatively limited time out there from Howard and then bullpen after him. And it's just not a very good offense. Obviously, with Arizona, you also have Kettle Marte priced up. Carson Kelly's at 4,800. So the guys that you would really like to get to are pretty expensive. I do think Josh Van Meter, who I know you mentioned earlier, 2,400 with second base and third base eligibility on DraftKings, hitting third. That's a pretty solid value option. So yeah, not real strong take either way for me on Arizona. I think kind of just projected to be owned about where they should be.
Okay, that works for me. The big thing for me is Van Meter at 8%, 2,400 dual eligibility. This Diamondbacks lineup has 4 different dudes with MPEs, so I'm just a little bit more interested than the lack of ownership here. Nothing too crazy, but I like getting to teams like this that just aren't pulling as much as I would expect. Roughly 5% chance of being a top stack based on what I've got here. I don't have any interest in the Rangers.
No, like I said, on the night slate, I think they're a good stack. On the main slate, I just Gallen's pulling ownership, but the opportunity cost is still so high. Like, it's just so likely that a team like Texas, even when Gallen has a bad start, that a team like Texas scores like 5 runs or something. And you're still better off rostering any of the actual major league offenses on the slate.
4.7 run implied total for Oakland, 4.2 for the White Sox. James Caprillion and Jimmy Lambert. No ownership going to Lambert. Caprillion at 8%. I got him at 11, so I'm a little bit higher. But I think like 10% for Caprillion today is reasonable. Good White Sox team, decent strikeout matchup.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I had said it before that I kind of just think the range of outcomes for guys like Caprillion and Odorizzi and Miley is really similar. Alex has Caprillion actually with the best chance of being a top 2 pitcher out of that group, but not by a wide margin. You basically just have a drop. You have Snell, Cole, Nola, Fried, Gallen, and then a drop to pretty much everybody else. So it's kind of just, if he's not going to pull as much ownership as Odorizzi, I would like to get a little bit more Caprillion. I came in around 14 or 15% earlier and wouldn't be surprised if I get the same thing here. It's a tough matchup. He's an okay pitcher, 24.4% strikeout percentage, 4.64 xFIP this season. The park is good for pitching. It's certainly nothing that I'm looking at and saying, I'm really confident that Caprillion pitches well here. But 4.3 implied run total for the White Sox, same thing as the Brewers against Nola. Same thing or similar, to a lot of these other spots. And the bottom of the order for the White Sox does drop off a bit. They are missing. There's no Goodwin in the lineup today. Tim Anderson is still out. So, you do get a little bit of a drop off there in a good pitcher's park. It's not a spot that I'm looking at Caprillion with a lot of confidence, but I do think he is just as talented as most of the other pitchers around him that are getting more ownership.
How are you feeling about the bats? I have Oakland 16th. I have the White Sox 10th. We don't have either one of these teams all that high in the top stack odds, although the White Sox look like a pretty decent leverage stack, no ownership coming in. Are you planning to get to Oakland or Chicago?
Oakland, I think, looks okay. We have them with, again, like 1.5% ownership, 3% chance of being the top stack. Really the same thing for Chicago, although I think the matchup is more difficult against Caprillion. Not going crazy on the A's, but in the crunch I did earlier, I was over the field, which, again, doesn't take much at 1%. Not a team I'm taking a stand on, not a team that would likely be a single entry or 3-max team for me, but they are one of those offenses that I do really like getting to when they're low owned. I don't think Jimmy Lambert's a particularly scary matchup, and I just think the upside's really high. So the park downgrades them a bit, but that 4.8 implied run total, it's in that same ballpark with the not the Rangers, with the Red Sox and the Rays and the Yankees, the Orioles. So it's relatively good for the slate.
I don't have anything else for A's or White Sox. I like the leverage a little bit on both sides, but they're not primary stacks for me.
Same.
Close it out. Lots to talk about here. Padres and Angels, 4.8 run implied total for San Diego, 2.7 for the Angels. Blake Snell and Packy Naughton. Blake Snell coming in at a crisp 51% owned on DraftKings today. That's craziness. Maybe raise that price a little bit. Packy Naughton not owned. I don't think the Snell ownership is wrong, though. I don't really have anything else to add. He looks like one of the clear top options. In my opinion, the clear top option for today relative to price.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's got a 30% strikeout percentage this season. It's the highest on the slate with the exception of Cole. 3.8 xFIP. The walk percentage is high and he's had some power issues, but he seems to have straightened things out recently. And then one thing really working in his favor that we've seen of late is that he's getting a longer leash. He's thrown at least 100 pitches in 4 of his last 5 games. The one start where he didn't, he still threw 92 pitches. One of the big issues that we were having with Snell earlier in the season is he can be an inefficient pitcher because of the combination of strikeouts and walks. His pitch count can get driven up. When the Padres were saying, okay, well, it's the 5th inning and Snell's thrown 85 pitches. Let's pinch hit for him. It just kind of capped that ceiling a little bit, but now we're seeing him go a lot deeper into games. So that alleviates that risk a little bit as well. You get a very weak Angels lineup, 2.7 implied run total, no Shohei Ohtani because there's no DH in the lineup. It's a pretty bad lineup.
It is really bad. I got it at an 85 weighted runs created plus. You get the pitcher, you get no Ohtani. Only Jared Walsh is north of 93 in Steamer for a weighted runs created plus. That is just utter dog shit from top to bottom. How do you feel about the Padres and targeting Packy Naughton? They are my number 4 stack overall, neutral from a leverage perspective.
Yeah, neutral from a leverage perspective, but another one of these teams where Fernando Tatis is pulling 3 times the ownership or twice the ownership of anyone else on the team. And I think that's deserved. He's expensive, but it's still Fernando Tatis against a pitcher that doesn't project to be very good in the major leagues. And then you've got, good hitters behind them. So I think the Padres are in a pretty good spot. They are pulling a little bit more ownership than some teams that have similar implied run totals. But still certainly interested in getting to the Padres.
Are you in this Jeter queue, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy to get to the Padres. There's so much power here. I don't really care all that much about Packy Naughton, doesn't project all that well. And I know quite confidently that we're not going to the Angels, even though Snell is in half of the lineups.
Yeah. 3 night slate. Sure. Just don't have any reason to get there on the main.
Yep. Agreed. Well, we are done. We still have a minute or two left. So let's sum it up. And in order to make, I can't remember the dude's name any longer, and he's probably gone here, but top stacks on DraftKings for today. And then I'm going to hit him with the FanDuel top stacks from our top stack tool.
So, I mean, in terms of chances of success, it's very, very, very clearly the Giants. Stack them in cash. In tournaments, when you're factoring in ownership, the way things look right now, I like Tampa Bay. I like the Braves. I think Cincinnati looks pretty good. It's a lot of, this is a slate where, again, I kind of said it earlier. My approach on slates like this from, a 150 max standpoint is typically to be pretty concentrated on pitching and then really spread out my offense's exposure, because I want to put myself in a position where if the Giants fail, I have exposure to a lot of the high upside stacks that are like that can beat them. Whereas on, some other slates, I want to spread out my pitching more and just, jam in a team that I really think is in a good spot and under-owned. There's not really one particular team that looks crazy under-owned to me on this slate. It's more so just like a lot of teams that are a little bit under-owned. So we can throw the Yankees in there too as a team that's under-owned, but I'd be pretty surprised if this is a slate where I end up getting, 40% of hitters from anywhere.
San Francisco is unquestionably the top stack on FanDuel. You're going to get to them a lot in cash. Be aware of the type of contest you're in if you're using them in GPPs. Kansas City is number 2, a little bit over-owned. I think the teams that you're looking for in large field GPPs, Tampa Bay, they are 6th overall in top stack, but barely any ownership coming in. They have a positive leverage score. Same situation for the Boston Red Sox. Well, that's it. Adam, anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here? 197 likes right now. Let's get that number north of 200 before we bounce out of here for Live Before Lock. What do you got? Nothing? That's it?
Yeah, that's it. Good luck.
Good luck to everybody else. We will be back again tomorrow doing it all once again. Have some fun tonight. Enjoy your Tuesday. Win some money. This is the Deeper Dive. Enjoy Live Before Lock. Stay on this stream. You got to be nowhere else. Thanks for the thumbs ups.
Jesus, you two. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the MLB Live Before Lock show presented by Odd Chopper. That makes it super easy. I'm Eric Lindquist. I'm here in Italy. We're still in hostel. We're still living the life over here, but I am excited because I get to hang out with my dude. And you know what? If I'm going to leave the wedding, if I'm going to have the fantastic day that I did, at least I get to hang out with a friend of mine. That is Greg Ehrenberg at G Ehrenberg DFS. How you doing, my dude?
Yeah, I was confused for a second. You're like, you get to hang out with a friend of yours, and I'm like looking around, like, who could it be? Who is this friend? And then it turns out it's me.
Jordan Klein.
Yeah, I was confused. I look on my Twitter feed right before the show starts, and I have to retweet the link right now. But I see that Eric Lindquist is at his best friend's wedding like 20 minutes ago. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not doing the show with Eric today. But lo and behold, here's Eric. That's how committed he is to giving you guys baseball content all the way from Italy. He leaves a wedding to come out. His best friend's wedding comes out. He's going to do the show, and then he's going to go right back out and party. But there is nothing that Eric Lindquist likes more than talking about MLB DFS on the YouTube.
You know, I guess there's part of it, but at least today. So yesterday I felt really bad because obviously I can't reserve lineups and play over here in Italy. I can do sports betting through some other sites that they have in different spots for Europe and such, but I can't play the regular DraftKings FanDuel. And I was able to be analyst, and I was like, oh, I wish I could just be able to host so Greg can make lineups and do things. Well, ta-da! Welcome to, I guess it's Tuesday over there. It's Wednesday over here, 12:08 a.m. But hit that like button because, again, we are committed. We love you guys. I'm excited to be here chatting some MLB with you. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. All of that goes a really long way for us. And also check out my boys, Ben Rasa, Matt Gajewski. We have NFL coming up here, but they have a podcast for college football, and they've been smashing Betting You. Check it out. All of the goods that they have every single day for the college football slates. Man, I just keep seeing all these screenshots of guys, you know, and it's a little bit here, it's a little bit there. You need to be checking out that podcast. And from a sports betting perspective, there's nobody sharper to talk to. They're going to be awesome assets for our football team as well. Looking forward to the 2021 season. But we have a lot to get to here, Greg Ehrenberg. Let's talk pitching like we always do. We have some pretty clear-cut studs at the top here. Blake Snell's ownership just continues to go up. Even in the last 20 minutes, Blake Snell now over 50%. Now he's back down, I guess, 49.3%. Just got the last run of ownership here. Zach Gallen, 45.4%. That's pretty crazy considering we have a 12-game slate. What are you doing with pitching here?
You know, let's talk about, we've got an hour here, and people, I'm also kind of curious to see what they're going to be doing with Blake Snell. First off, if you're playing cash games, you just play Blake Snell. On FanDuel, he's picking up 26% ownership. Over on DraftKings, like you said, he's now owned in over 50% of lineups. The other thing to consider here is not only is this an already favorable matchup against the Los Angeles Angels, there's no Shohei Ohtani in the lineup. Ohtani, with this being a game in the National League, no DH. I thought there was a chance maybe to play first base, maybe play the outfield, but no, there is no Ohtani in the lineup today. So an already favorable matchup for Blake Snell. This is a ridiculously favorable matchup on paper. The other thing to consider too, Blake Snell this year, pretty massive home run splits. He's been very good at home. He's been very poor on the road. The other thing to consider also is that after a really weak start to the season, he's been pitching better lately. So the thing I'm really struggling with is that I feel like he's picking up too much ownership, but we kind of had this discussion the other day with Tariq Skubal, who then was on like a random pitch count. He pitched 4 good innings, and then they're like, hey, we're just not going to pitch him anymore today. I think it's a good spot for Snell. I just don't know that he's worth 50% ownership. I'm probably going to be somewhere around the field to slightly below, but still he's pretty clearly points per dollar the best pitching play on the slate.
Yeah, if you're playing cash, this might be the most clear-cut cash slate I've ever I don't know if I've ever seen a slate where you could just build the cash lineup in 5 seconds like this. It feels extremely obvious on DraftKings today. Maybe that's just me. We'll get to the stacks and then we'll have that conversation even a little further, but also maybe not playing cash on September 8th is probably a good way to go too. Let's kind of work our way down here. If you're not going to be playing Snell, you're not going to be playing Zach Allen. There are 2 studs up top, and Garrett Cole and Aaron Nola. Both difficult spots. I mean, Milwaukee, tons of lefties here. Garrett Cole, Toronto. That's not a team that strikes out very high whatsoever. 20.3% K percentage against righties here on the season. Second best in baseball. 111 WRC plus. 196 ISO. I mean, that thing just keeps creeping up. Now second, tied with the San Francisco Giants for in ISO, 196. What do you think about those 2 up top? Do you have any kind of reasons to, in large field GPPs, find yourself onto more Cole, onto more Nola?
Yes, from a standpoint of just that we've got Aaron Nola is 10% owned on DK. We've got Garrett Cole 20%. And then you just start to look like, okay, if I'm not going to be playing Blake Snell, who do I go to? And, once again, Snell, I still think should be a core part of lineups, but he's not going to be 100% of our lineups. And I think some of those other lineups, guys like Garrett Cole, he's worth being overweight to field on. Aaron Nola is worth being overweight to field on. Although with that said, my favorite pitcher in the high tier price range, and I know this isn't exactly what you asked, but it's actually Logan Webb, who I've been rostering a lot.
Let's go.
I've been rostering a lot of pitchers at Coors Field lately just because they've been grading out so well for us. And it's been mixed results. Some of them, obviously it's Coors Field. It's the way it's going to go for pitchers. But there's some days, like there's been a lot of Kyle Freeland slates over the last few months where he's been like 1% owned going up against popular offense. And he goes out and has a strong outing. But, at least in our top pitchers tool right now, we have Logan Webb only project for 0.5% ownership, 10.4% chance to be a top stack. The Rockies offense against right-handed pitching is not good whatsoever. They just get the tremendous home boost park. So Logan Webb, at least at that kind of ownership on DK, I certainly think he's worth getting to more than the field. And then FanDuel, the 9,700 price tag, I find this to be a little bit problematic on a single pitcher site. 0.5% ownership, easy enough to get overweight to the field too. But in the high end, if I really want to differentiate, Logan Webb is the guy to go to for me.
I love Logan Webb. Yeah, I think he's an extremely good pitcher, and I have no problem with that. Somebody that if I were able to play today, I think that would be a fantastic spot to go to. I always think about Ryan. So Ryan's one of the best, Ren Pack, our buddy. He's one of the best players in the world here at Awesemo. And in the live final, one ticket in FanDuel, dude is like, there's no way I'm not rostering a pitcher in Coors when it's Zach Gallen, when it's somebody with K upside. They just go under owned every single time. And he's like, it's the easiest plug and play. They generally end up being cheaper. The interesting thing about Logan Webb today is that he's priced up because he's a really good arm. And that's just kind of what you're going to have to deal with on this slate. 9,500 is a contrarian spend up, but not only do we not have him, sometimes when our ownership just sits there at 0.1 or like 1.0 where it's like 1%, he's like underneath 1%. So I absolutely love that play. Somebody that I would definitely like in large field tournaments. I don't think you have to get that cute if you're going to be playing some small field stuff. If you're playing cash, you don't have to think about it whatsoever, but Logan Webb definitely sticks out. Next grouping of these pitchers on the board, it gets into the Erod territory. Eric Lauer's 8,800. I don't know why, but Eric Lauer's 8,800. That's good times. Max Fried, another guy. Washington has decent enough hitters there. He's by far the most overowned pitcher on this slate. I would have no interest going there. Do you have any interest in any of those guys?
So you mentioned Erod in this group, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So I have marginal interest in Erod. He's somebody who I've rostered a lot in the second half of the season. We've seen the results trend up from a little bit as of late. And, matchup against the Tampa Bay Rays, that's not ideal. But once again, somebody who's only 3% owned, I think he's worth being overweight to the top of the field of. And if you look at the underlying numbers for Eduardo Rodriguez this year, significantly better than what his ERA shows. So he does have a 4.88 ERA. But look at some of those underlying numbers: 3.58 expected ERA, 3.41 FIP. His strikeout rate, 27.5, best mark of his career. His walk rate, 6.9%, also the best of his career. So the reason that this ends up with him having the highest ERA of his career, it's just bad luck. He has a 354 BABIP this year. He has a 67.8% strand rate. These are all things that I expect to normalize, and we've already seen it to an extent. If you look at his recent starts, they've been pretty solid on the whole. Even last time out against this same Tampa Bay Rays team, he pitched 6 shutout innings, had 6 strikeouts. He's now allowed 3 or less earned runs in 5 of his last 6 starts. So we've started to see a little more neutral luck from Eduardo Rodriguez, and considering those underlying stats, once again, a contrarian pitching option to get behind.
Yeah, I've always felt like he's getting very unlucky this entire season. You're dead on with that assessment. But it's about the worst matchup you can run into in Tampa Bay. I talked a little bit about it yesterday, where it's just a team that can set up their lineup in very miserable ways. We saw them get after Chris Sale to 10 hits in less than 4 innings there, and got him out of the game early, and it turned into an absolute crazy shootout. So you're looking at that again, a little bit cooler there today, 72 degrees. You had all afternoon games yesterday. I think that might be something that I would, if I were playing once again today, I would have a little bit more gauge on to understand where, like yesterday, if people are going to be kind of flocking there, but people are flocking to a different place, and it's pretty simple where that's going to be going to. So maybe we don't have to necessarily be worried about it. I am very interested to hear about which stacks you're prioritizing on this slate. Sometimes I think it's clear cut, but today might be one of my favorite tournament slates I've looked at in a long time, but I digress. Let's go down the board here and finish out pitching. James Kaprielian, somebody that I know Adam talked about on the last show towards the end. Somebody he kind of said in jest where it's like, fade this guy, Blake Snell, fade this guy, Zach Gallen, and then get to James Kaprielian, who's going a little bit under-owned, or it's basically flat ownership there. Jake Odorizzi, Logan Gilbert. Oh, man, I don't know how I feel about Logan Gilbert, but he's underneath 1%. In this next grouping of guys, who's kind of somebody that is sticking out that's showing up in some of your lineups?
So what's the price range? Can you give me the
so I'm looking at right now. So I mean, we're making our way down. We've talked about Cole and Nola up in the 10K spot. You talked about Logan Webb, Blake Snell, Eduardo Rodriguez. Then we get to this 8K uppers, not really kind of going there, but starting at 8K down. You have Logan Gilbert sitting there. I guess we could even put Wade Miley, 8,200 into that grouping. From 8,200 down to 7,100, you're looking at a bunch of pitchers that seem to be going a little bit underrepresented outside of Jake Odorizzi at 7,500. And man, I would not be super enthusiastic to be getting to him today. But in this upper sevens, lower eights, anybody that you're getting to in a meaningful way?
Well, first, let's compare, because this guy kind of gets lost a little bit, and I think we should bring him up just because he's one of the most popular pitchers on the slate, and that's Max Fried, 8,600 at home against the Washington Nationals, currently projected for 33% ownership, so that makes him the third most popular pitcher on DraftKings. Only Zach Gallen and Blake Snell currently picking up more ownership. Over on FanDuel, we have Fried at 9,300, also somewhat popular, 14% projected ownership. So the matchup against the Nationals is very ideal for Max Fried, but I don't know that there's that much strikeout upside with him. He's definitely regressed in a pretty big way from what we saw out of him last year. And I just think at that kind of ownership, and to me, there's also a difference when he's this popular versus Blake Snell, just because Snell's been so good lately. Whereas Fried for the year, the numbers are okay, but it's only a 24.3% strikeout rate for him. And looking through his game log, when's the last time we saw a real significant upside from Max Fried? Max Fried's recent games, 25 fantasy points last time out. All right, he did have a game with 35 fantasy points against Baltimore, but in general, not a super high strikeout guy. There's just other guys I would rather get to than Max Fried at 33.4% ownership. So some of the other guys priced around here, I prefer a little bit, like I mentioned, Eduardo Rodriguez. I think he sends close to pivot. By the way, if you didn't see Eric, we got an ownership update, and so now we have Eduardo Rodriguez in the same price range as Max Fried. We have 1% projected ownership going to Rodriguez compared to 33.4% for Fried. So I think there's pivots to make here when it comes to Fried.
Absolutely. This is such a good tournament slate. My God. It's phenomenal. You have such clear-cut chalk at pitcher. You have such clear-cut chalk there. And despite the fact that I eat chalk, it doesn't mean that I eat chalk in DFS. It's just delicious, and I like the taste. Going underneath 8K, let's go.
Do the different colors of different? Do the different colors of different flavors? Like if it's pink, does it taste any different? I assume you're like a connoisseur now.
Straight up white chalk. I mean, I don't know what I was doing with that. I would like to kind of foray. Maybe there's some strawberry chalk in my future. It depends. If you hit the like button and get over 500 likes today, I'll eat some red chalk on a stream. I don't give a shit. I'm absolutely just here freewheeling. I don't care. I got a nice Peroni. Oh, lovely. Oh, Italia. Look at this advertising. Can we get something going with them? Perhaps some strawberry chalk. I feel like if I had to eat a colored chalk, green would be. Oh, somebody literally just said green is apple. That would be amazing, Alan King. I would be a big fan of that.
Yeah, I think the other thing you run into too, like when you eat like different colored foods, also like it changes the color of your bowel movements and stuff. Like I don't like how did that come out like chalk? Like does that present issues when you go to the bathroom?
My dude, Loco, we are not doing this again.
Yeah, I also want to talk Eric out of eating chalk because like why? The people like you, right? You don't need to do stunts anymore. You're not the you're not the local radio like oh look we've got Fats the guys like the third mic who just come in and the arm part and we like you, Eric. You don't need to come eat chalk. You're out here from Italy. You're leaving your friend's wedding. You don't have to impress anybody. We're good.
How drunk am I? I've had like 2 drinks. I feel pretty good about that fact. Again, I'm a professional. That's how I roll. I'm going to be going back down and immediately having more than 2 drinks as soon as this is done, but looking forward to it very much. let's continue ourselves on. We got to finish out pitching here. We got underneath 8K. It gets a little bit bleaker, but also the ownership outside of Zach Gallen. I'm just going to throw him out here. James Caprillion, again, he was somebody that Adam had brought up. So I think I've kind of identified him and tried to be somebody that I've looked into a little bit. But oh my God, is it bleak outside of Jackson Cowher? I think he's probably the one guy we should talk about, considering he's pulling 8.7% chance in the top in the top pitchers tool, 8.7% of being a top 2 pitcher, 4.1% ownership. Against Baltimore, I'm willing to play just about anybody. I know we had talked yesterday. Bubic didn't necessarily work out that well. He didn't burn anybody, but you needed to be paying up a pitcher, and I think that made sense on that slate. But man, 5,300 can get you some different stuff. Pricing is extremely soft because of what is existent in Coors Field today and where that ownership is flocking to. But what do you think about Jackson Cowher and anybody else pique your interest under 7K?
If you need to play a cheap pitcher, go ahead and it's fine. You can play Jackson Cowher. We do have him with a 34.4% chance being one of the top 2 value pitchers on the slate over on DraftKings. That is by far the best mark of any cheap pitcher on the slate. The only one who even comes remotely close is Zach Gallen. But still, I mean, with Cowher at 5,300, once again, I have to look at his numbers and just how poor they've been this year. He is, and also this is a limited sample size, but in the 11 innings he's pitched in the big leagues, he's not generating strikeouts. He has a 9.82 ERA, a 7.15 expected ERA. If you look at his ZiPS projection for the rest of the season, then with a 5.12 ERA, they don't have him striking out very many hitters. So it's all stuff that's concerning to me. And the other thing also is I just don't know that we're that desperate to save salary on this slate. So once again, if he's in a couple of your lineups, it's not the end of the world, but I wouldn't make him a priority. So obviously you're in Italy. There's different rules there. They don't even know baseball exists over in Italy. There's no DFS there, but how much Cowher do you think you would be getting to if you were playing the slate?
I will tell you, because I just started putting my spreadsheet together while we were on this stream here. It's nice because, again, there's not the pressure of doing everything beforehand because there's no monetary incentive. And I can kind of tell you, as we're updating ownership, exactly what I would do. Kind of really nice to do, actually. I haven't taken much time off DFS, and I didn't know how badly I needed it until I got here. I digress. I think I would probably be getting to about 12 to 15% based on what I just crunched. Yeah, 13%. So that's kind of the number. It generally seems like when I get somebody underneath 7K and there's only one guy that I'm really kind of gravitating towards, I usually get quite a bit over the field into them purely because it can give you access. What happens when you pay down for a pitcher? It's very obvious. It gives you better batters in your lineup through and through just about all the time. Of course, you have a great game environment in Coors Field, but I could get to right now, I'm getting to quite a bit of Corey Seager, Justin Turner, Trey Turner underneath 5K, makes it a little bit easier kind of putting all of them there. I'm able to get to more of the Coors Field bats on the Colorado side, which we don't even have a lineup for. Charlie Blackmon, Trevor Story, CJ Cron, who just mashes pitchers, everybody at home. And as much as Logan Webb is a fantastic play and somebody that you're getting to, it's Coors Field. It's the Rockies at home where they can actually be competent. That's probably the nicest thing I can say about them. So I would still be getting to quite a bit of him on a large scale. Of course, I don't expect that he's going to have the upside. There are so many upside arms. So I don't want to get people like, oh, I'm playing 3 lineups and I need to have 2 of them with this cat here. If I were playing 150 today, I think having, 10%, 12%, that makes a lot of sense just to get different stacks, different access, whether it's the Yankees specifically going up against Steven Matz. I think I would be getting to more of them. Aaron Judge, 5.8K. Some of these more expensive bats, it just becomes so much more contrarian, makes my lineups look really, really nice, having a combination of one high upside pitcher with him. I think in large field tournaments, that's just fine. What do you think about that? And are you getting to him in any kind of meaningful way?
Not really. Like there's some lineups where I needed to save salary and he just ends up being the pitcher in that scenario for this reason. Yeah. If you look under 7,000, there's nobody. They all suck. And we did this yesterday also, right? We were talking about it's like, this guy sucks. Then ultimately what happened? They all ended up sucking. And it's kind of the same thing today where we have, Jackson Cowher is projected. We have with an 8.8% chance being one of the top 2 scoring pitchers on the slate. The next closest pitcher who's priced under 7K is Paulo Espino with a 2.9% chance being a top 2 scoring pitcher. And then everybody else is just 0. Naughton, 0. Wells, 0. Lambert, 0. Sampson, 0. Howard, 0. Chichi Gonzalez, 0. So there's nobody else who's really viable under here. I wouldn't roster Paulo Espino. So if you absolutely have to say salary pitcher and just go, hey, I love these expensive offenses I'm paying up, there is nobody that makes sense other than Coer. So for that reason, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, you're kind of forced to play him in some of them, but it's not a confident play, not somebody to actually go out and, recommend with any confidence.
Anything else from pitching whatsoever? Final thoughts about the slate here. It's a beast, 12 gamer, lots of super chalky pitching, lots of contrarian high upside arms. What kind of sticks out to you, or any final thoughts here?
Let's see. There are any, we could talk about Kaprelian just because Adam liked him. I don't like Kaprelian. I feel
he's really good against righties. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup against the White Sox. He's projected for 9.5% ownership, 10.3% chance of being top scoring pitcher on the slate. Now, I don't know exactly. There's a chance that Kaprelian was projected for lower ownership earlier in the day, and that could be also something that drove Adam towards him. I didn't do the strategy show today, so I don't know exactly what the ownership was earlier in the day, but at least as of now, there's ownership going there. There's other pitchers in this price range with less ownership I'd rather get to. Something similar goes to Jake Odorizzi at 7,500, 13% projected ownership. Somebody else I don't really love when he's getting that kind of ownership. We didn't really talk in depth about Zach Gallen. What do you make of all the ownership going to him?
Okay, so he's definitely a great talking point for this entire slate. 7,900. It's a fantastic price point. It's a Texas Rangers team that is not very competent. 87 WRC plus is the thing that stuck out to me the most in researching this slate. 154 ISO. They're not creating runs. They're not hitting for power. They're obvious bats that if you wanted to be on the other side of it, if you wanted to stack up a team at really low ownership, getting a bunch of leverage, it's pretty easy to know where to go here. But you don't have Adolis Garcia in the lineup. And so you're going Nate Loud, DJ Peters, 2.2K, Jonah Heim. I understand why the ownership is getting there for me, but it's still looking at some of the strikeout splits here for Texas. They're more like a middle of the road matchup. 23.9% K percentage against righties for 2021. That's 13th in baseball. That's whatever. Sure, maybe he doesn't go completely nuts here. I would much rather spread out at least half of that ownership to other pitchers, getting myself access to lower salary arms. Logan Webb, 9,500. I love that you're on him because I didn't know if you were or not. And just a guy that I just believe to be a good pitcher going forward. Erod, very unlucky going forward. It should be much better. James Kaprelian, I'm fine with. I really do like his prospects against a team with a bunch of righties. But looking at this lineup here today, you get Moncada, you get Grandal, you get Sheets, Valori Garcia. Not the most intimidating Cesar Hernandez in the 9-hole. Not the most intimidating lefties, but of guys that can maybe do some damage. I think the ballpark definitely helps. And then you get the Robert, the Eloy Jimenez. I think just rounding out all of these other pitchers for me, it's like get to 25% of that cat and spread out everywhere else. What do you think about that?
Wait, you're saying 20 to 25% of Kaprelian?
Or no, it's Gallen. I would still get to about half of the ownership on Gallen. I got to 31%, I guess would be the exact number that I just got to in my 150. And I think that I would be willing to roll with some of that. I find it hard to believe that I would get to 75% of a pitcher ever on a 12 game slate, unless it was like Garrett Cole and he was priced at like 8K or something like that. But what do you think about that?
I have 33% of him on build right now. So, I'm totally on board with that. The other thing too, with Zach Gallen, I think we should mention, if you're playing cash games today, FanDuel, I think you go to Blake Snell. DraftKings, I think it's pretty easy. Snell SP1, Gallen SP2. Would you agree with that?
Yep, I would. Absolutely. I think we're going to keep moving on then to pitcher. Tink, not today, my dude. Not going to handle it. Not going to deal with it, Tink Arquist. And then also Butthole. It's okay. You just needed a time to sit and think by yourself. We've got two things that I need to talk about. Football is finally back, and we have a deal to get you started with NFL DFS. Awesemo NFL Express weekly pass is $1. It's $1. Just literally $1. That's absurd. Promo code DAC. Use that. Our Express Pass is the best way to introduce yourself to the Awesemo Plus package for the NFL product. It's as expansive as ever. We keep adding tools. Alex Baker, Steve Buzzard, my boy Eddie Lai, who I got to meet in Denver. One of the coolest dudes I've ever met. What a champ that dude is. all of the stuff that they're working on constantly. Players, it's not just players and ownership rankings, but we have the Slack channel on our end too. They have these tools that they are adding every single day. NFL props tools, NFL betting tools, stuff constantly being put in the works for showdown, single game, regular DFS slates, the whole week one gamut, player projections, ownership projections, new top stacks tool for NFL as well. It's absurd. This new year is jam-packed with everything you could possibly want. Season-long fantasy football coverage, as well as the projected ownership and optimal lineup probabilities for tiers contests. I know Alex Baker has been talking a little bit. We've been having discussions behind the scenes, and he was talking about how tiers contests are some of the best ways to get into the DFS product. If you're newer to the game, people don't focus on them as much. We are going to have some focus on them, and you can check it all out for $1. That offer is good through Monday, September 13th. There's no reason you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm also going to package this together. If you've been playing in a Yahoo Fantasy Football League before, but you haven't tried their Best Ball product, and Best Ball, we've been playing on Underdog. We've been playing on DraftKings. Check out the Yahoo Best Ball product. They have leagues ranging from free to $500, and they have leagues for every type of player. Use our draft kit. Use our draft wingman that Josh Engelman has tons of videos for on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. I can't tell you how valuable that is. I found so much value in watching him. He's got ESPN videos, Yahoo videos, everything you could imagine, but specifically check out some of the Yahoo stuff. Head over after you're done watching this video and get started drafting a team within minutes. All right, let's go to the top stacks tool. I'm going to hit the old refresh button. I'm in Italy. Takes another 0.5 seconds. There we are. Look at this. 21.5% San Francisco Giants. So when I say that this seems like the most straightforward cash slate I've ever seen in my life, basically what I'm saying is you play Blake Snell, you play Zach Gallen, and you play all the San Francisco Giants. Is that kind of what you would be looking at if you were playing cash? And then how do you handle a team that has such a great chance of being the top stack, 21.5% on DraftKings tonight, but is coming up with crazy ownership and some specific bats that are just garnering a bunch of it?
Yeah. So first, going through the ownership right here on DraftKings, the lowest owned hitter in the entire lineup is Steven Dugar, 18%. Every single other hitter here is projected for 27% or more ownership. This is going to be, I think, the chalkiest offense we've seen the entire year for a slate of this size. I can't remember a slate that had 12 games where we had one team where just the entire team was picking up, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30% ownership. And there's no way to really differentiate with any of the bats here. Like I said, when Dugar is 18% at the bottom of the lineup, this isn't one of those situations where there's a guy at the bottom of the order that's 2 or 3% owned to differentiate a little bit. So I feel like there's a couple of things to do here. Number one, for me personally, I just have to be underweight to not only the Giants as a whole, but just each individual hitter over the course of my lineups. Number two, if you do want to make Giant stacks, at least do it with a contrarian pitcher. And the easiest way to do it is Logan Webb with Giant stacks. I think that is really sensible. The other thing here, just the pricing is wrong on San Francisco. Like, I don't know what park the algorithm thought they were playing in. They thought they were playing in, like Citi Field or something. But this entire, the pricing is just wrong. It doesn't take into account where the park is at. Actually, I'm gonna look at some of these prices. I think these guys are less expensive than they were the last time they played at home. Even, I mean, we've got. Let's see, what is Lamont Wade Jr.? He's been leading off a decent amount recently. His price has just basically stayed the same, I guess. Brendan Bell. Yeah. So it's just the same, or even some of them lower prices we've seen over the last few weeks, which just doesn't really make sense considering they're playing in Coors Field. So I agree with cash games, five-man Giant stacks. You go Zach Allen, you go a Blake Snell as SP1, SP2, but for tournaments, I just go elsewhere and kind of hope you get lucky to an extent, because it's not, this isn't clearly the best offense on the slate, but it's just, they don't have a 30% chance of being the top scoring team of the day.
That's what I'm saying. It's a 5-man. I got to imagine that it's a lot of 3v3, 2v2, 1v1 kind of situations in cash today. Just kind of tread lightly, as in the old words of Walter White, tread lightly. Looking down the rest of the board here, MLB DFS is lovely, because then, of course, another team garnering more ownership than they should. Kansas City, 12.1% ownership share. we went in depth on Sal Perez. Of course, you can play Sal Perez. He's one of the best hitting catchers. Well, he's the best hitting catcher in baseball. I don't really find there to be that much question about it. Dude absolutely rakes. And he only went for 7 yesterday against the Baltimore Lothar, their starter, and then the rest of the pen there coming in. But it's still Sal Perez. And we know the kind of upside he has. Even before he went on this quote unquote hot streak, the guy just hits the ball hard, over a 55% hard hit percentage here for quite a while. No question about it that I would get to some of him, but these rest of these Kansas City Royals, I mean, that was the thing that helped you win tournaments yesterday. It was just not being there. You were dead on with your analysis of that. You asked me about which players I would be lower on. Pretty much everybody is the right answer. What do you think about them today as the second most popular stack?
It's too much ownership. Once again, it's very similar to yesterday. There's so many games to choose from today, and the Royals, their offense doesn't totally suck. It's fine, but they shouldn't be 12% owned on a slate this size, and our top stack still bears that out. We have them with a 7.1% chance being the top scoring team on the slate. So, I look at my ownership. Salvador Perez, he's one of my most rostered catchers today, but that means I have him in 10% of my lineups, and the field has him over 20. So once again, I think overall a guy to be underweight to the field on, especially when he's 5,800. I get that he has massive power upside and that he's been really good, especially from a home run perspective over the last few weeks. But I don't really want to roster him at 21% when there's a bunch of pitchers we want to pay up for, and he's 5,800. Adalberto Mondesi is a fine one-off play also, but once again, he's 24% owned. That's another number I want to be underweight to the field on. And the rest of the hitters in slime just aren't that great. So, I mean, we've got other guys, Hunter Dozier's hitting 9th. He's projected for 11% ownership. That seems crazy to me. So, fine spot for the Royals. But once again, I want to be underweight to them on the whole.
So now we're going to get really, really fun because this is where the leverage starts to begin. And as somebody over there on your end, who I've gone through some of your results in the old fantasy cruncher, in fantasy and lineup rewind and such, you've won a lot of tournaments this year in MLB DFS and the Minimax. I feel like you've won like at least 5 or 6 of those in the main slates alone. I don't even know about some of the other ones, but it comes down to finding out what to do with some of these other stacks on the board. And I think you've done a really good job of identifying where to find leverage. And this is just, I'm going to throw it out there. I think you were dead on. I think Cincinnati was the right kind of spot to be at. Didn't necessarily work out completely, but what is the team that you are getting to the most who is going, and I'm just assuming, underrepresented here on this slate?
Yeah, and I'm just going to refresh all our ownership here to make sure I'm looking at all of the most recent stretch of data to make sure that it's not anything different, which, okay, yeah. So once again, it's the same team I liked yesterday. It's the Cincinnati Reds, who are currently only projected for 5.2% ownership. And, it's a spot for them once again, where they're going up against a Cubs team that they're not going up against a popular pitcher like they did yesterday. Also, that situation was a little different, but also I want to see if we've gotten any weather updates there. That was a little bit of a concern earlier. Nothing too major, but want to also make sure that didn't change while we were on the show. Also something that our guy, the news guy on Negro Loco, he's always on top of it in our Slack chat. But yeah, no real major weather concerns here in Chicago for the Reds Cubs game. But I mean, the Reds is a team who, when they've been lower owned, I've gotten to them a decent amount. They were my favorite stack yesterday, which, like you said, didn't really pan out. But outside of Tyler Naquin, who's projected for 16% ownership today, there's nobody else in this lineup that's popular. Everybody else is 7% or lower, and we have them being one of the best overall odds, being a top scoring team on the slate. So guys like Nick Castellanos, Jonathan India, Joey Votto, I think all of these guys weren't being overweight to the field on. And then even if you're looking for value later in the lineup, Max Schrock, I don't think is a bad play. Tucker Barnhart's one of my favorite catcher plays on the slate. He's somebody who I'm well over the field on in terms of ownership. So the Reds are once again my favorite stack of the day.
I love it. I mean, I think that's a great spot to be at. Wind blowing out there to right field. It's strange for whatever reason. Maybe it's just me. I always feel like it's when they say, "Oh, wind's blowing out at Wrigley," it's always seemed to go to left field, and going up against Adrian Sampson in this spot, and then the Cubs bullpen. Going to be a lot of right-handed pitching and a lot of lefties here. Tyler Naquin under 3K, Joey Votto under 5K, Mike Moustakas 5K on the number. Man, has he been bad, but man, do I not care. I absolutely love getting to those bats as well. If I were playing today, once again, I think that would be a team that I would be way overinvested. Well, not overinvested in, because it's hard when they're coming in under-owned. let's go to some of these other teams. Philadelphia is a team that a number of people have brought up here in the chat, and I want to give the people what they want. I'm a people pleaser by nature. That's just kind of what I do. Philadelphia on this slate, where are they in the top two right now? Going way underneath, way under own. I mean, you can get to a lot of teams on this slate. There are 24 teams in play, 12 games, but Philadelphia, just because a number of people brought them up in chat, what do you think about their prospects on this slate?
Yeah, so let's see where we currently have Philly. They're certainly a little bit under-owned as a team over on DraftKings, not significantly so, although there really are no teams today that are significantly positively leveraged. There's a couple of teams that are negatively leveraged, and there's a bunch of teams that have like a 1-2 positive leverage score. But to me, that's why where I'm really looking to differentiate is playing some of those guys like Logan Webb at pitcher, 0.5% ownership, because then if you already have him in your lineups, it doesn't even matter who the offenses are. You already have a fairly contrarian lineup. But as for the Phillies as a stack, yeah, they are rating out as an under-owned team, which is certainly nice. But, Eric Lauer, I think, is a decent enough starting pitcher. The Brewers also have a really good bullpen behind him. So I think it's fine to get Phillies exposure, but this is far from my favorite stack or something that's a priority for me.
Matt Noah just said, just went and made a red stack. I'm easily influenced. I feel that way too. I feel like when sharp people say something immediately, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to build a $100 single entry lineup and throw in all that stuff. But here's the thing. In the long run, it's going to work out more than it doesn't. Spoiler alert. That's kind of what it is. I did like a thread that I saw the other day. It's somebody that I know you were on the show of, so I don't feel so bad bringing him up. But Blenderhead, he's a guy that, in the DFS circles has a podcast that goes on for an eternity, but he brings up some sharp points and talked about tournaments in MLB DFS. And I thought it was a very interesting thread. You should all be checking it out. And then Neil Orford, one of the guys, or Orfield, he's one of the new guys here at Awesemo. Not really new, though, because he's been a sub here a while. And, he's won a couple milli makers, or at least one milli maker, I know. He talks about how you basically are looking to be profitable on like 2 or 3 days over the course of a month. And that can be how you make a bunch of ROI. You're not looking to min cash. You're not looking to stack up the Giants with, a bunch of chalky pitchers and have that be the way that you go about making your lineups. As much as I eat chalk, I do not eat chalk in MLB DFS. I leave that for the NBA streets. But is there another team that we can kind of be looking at? And then, I don't know, just if an overarching concept. We have, 24 minutes left here on the show. What do you think about MLB DFS kind of looking back in the rear view mirror on this season? And do you feel very good about your process? And do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a high variance sport. And then just talking about GPPs in general. So 2 seasons ago for NFL, I had 2 profitable weeks the entire season, but one of them I won. It's like a $35,000 GPP on FanDuel, and then some smaller ones that day also. So overall for the season, it was profitable. But once again, if I'm going out today, I'm playing Logan Webb at pitcher, it's not going to go well all that often. That is not a fact that is hidden. Yeah, like, I know that's true. It's not going to work out very often. However, I think it's going to work out more than the 0.5% that we currently have in projected for ownership. And let me refresh, make sure it's still 0.5%. Watch every refresh now. It's like 20% owned or something like that. But yeah, so something like the Logan Webb situation, 0.9% projected ownership now, very, very low.
Right.
But it's more so when those spots pay out, they pay out so much bigger. Whereas, look, if you're playing in a large field GPP today, and you play Blake Snell, Zach Allen, and Giant stack and that's your lineup. That is the optimal lineup today. That is what's going to come out the most often in optimizers. That is going to be the lineup that is most likely to min cash today. That is a very, very difficult lineup to end up winning a GPP with, because that's something that, when we have, let's see, Blake Snell, nearly 50% ownership, Zach Allen over 40%, then everybody in the Giants lineup is 30%. That could be the nuts, but you could play that and not even min cash today because such a large portion of the field is. So that's why you want to go contrarian in these spots, just from a mathematical sense, that you have a better chance of a big hit when you don't play those spots, even though the most likely outcome is Blake Snell pitches well today, Zach Allen pitches well today, the Giants have a big game. But I'm not looking to min cash or profit on every single individual slate. I'm trying to profit over the long run. And that's kind of how the baseball season, I think, should be looked at, is on the whole, not really slate to slate. So I'm not sure if that totally answers your question, but that's kind of how I view it.
No, I think it's fantastic how you answered it. And 15% for me, starting a long time ago, like even 7 years ago when I started playing DFS, I started in the MLB DFS streets. And I realized very quickly that if you're aiming for the number one spot, which should be the goal in every top heavy, and everything's top heavy these days, you don't even have to think about it twice. You're basically just saying, okay, 50% doesn't get me into even a min cash to begin with. So why am I worrying about such things? Like 18% of the field gets paid out or 20%. It doesn't really matter. Just be cognizant of what tournaments you're playing to a certain extent, and understand if there's, a amount of risk that you're willing to inherit, like you and I are, the way that we play. You're going to actually be making better lineups in the long run than if you're playing it safe. It's just the way that this sport works. So again, I love the Cincinnati call today. It's a team that I absolutely agree with. Anything else from a stack perspective that sticks out to you? I think I would be getting to a little bit more Oakland. I get to a little bit more Oakland on every slate. It's the worst game environment you can have in terms of ballpark. You have a foul territory that goes out for miles and miles and miles, which definitely kills down on, just some easier outs that would generally be foul balls. And then you have pitchers also get depreciated by it as well. They don't get as many Ks. But going up against the White Sox here, the Oakland A's, Jimmy Lambert is not good. And I would think I would get to a lot more A's, but there are so many spots on this slate that kind of stick out like that. Give me the really low owned stack, like the really low, like underneath 4% owned stack that you would have, or that you do have interest in today.
I kind of want to say the Angels just for leverage purposes, but it's such a bad offense that they're even so bad. If they were, what's funny is if they had a 2% chance of being the top scoring team on the slate, they'd be one of my most rostered offenses. But just the fact they only have but the fact they're 0.7% instead of 2, they're just neutrally leveraged. And then even trying to force myself to them to get off to get leverage off Blake Snell, it still doesn't really happen for me. Like I was rerunning lineups a few minutes ago, and still I just wasn't really getting to the Angels at all, even with the all the ownership going to Blake Snell. But let's see, under 1% or under 4%, you said the number was?
Under 4%. Mainly, I just didn't want to give you Cincinnati as a freebie.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. It's a team that I stack pretty much every day at this point. So I'm sure people in the chat could guess that it is the Houston Astros going up against Logan Gilbert, who I think Logan Gilbert is a solid pitcher. But once again, I have been on the Houston Astros for the worst for a very, very long time now. And for a team that is the best offense in baseball by a pretty wide margin by WRC+, they certainly don't feel like they score very many runs. But Logan Gilbert got off to a really good start this year, but he's regressed a little bit as of late. And then also it's the Oakland A's offense with no ownership going towards them. And even if they have had some slates where they've been really low owned as of late and not shown up in them, it's still a spot where if they're going to be 1% owned, I'm probably going to want to be on the Houston Astros.
Anything else from stacks that you want to talk about on the way out of that?
Let's see. Who else is really popular that we haven't brought up that, or if anybody,
I would be getting to more Tampa Bay still. I mean, I understand that the game environment isn't as good and that Erod has been getting unlucky, but there's still something to be said about this Tampa Bay Rays team being underowned every single slate. The offense is ridiculous. You have Rosarena, Franco, and Cruz that all went off yesterday. And they are going to go off a lot because they're all fantastic hitters. And then you still get Yandy Diaz and Luplow for some salary savings. Manuel Margot is 2.6K. Zunino, 4.5K. I mean, just one of the all or nothing catchers on planet Earth. I'm forever connected to him for the All-Star game. So I have some good vibes from him. Tampa Bay would be a team to get to. There's so many nice spots on this slate. Basically, the reason it's one of my favorite tournament slates I've looked at in a while is you don't play San Francisco, you don't play KC, you can play just about anybody else, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing also is the ownership is so concentrated that, we have to do the show for an hour. So a lot of these things can be summed up in 5 minutes. Don't let anybody know this or else, because
can I go? Can I go?
Yeah,
I can go.
No, not you. Anybody else can leave that. But so the ownership for this slate is so concentrated on a handful of players: Giants, Blake Snell, Zach Gallen. That's really the bulk of the ownership. There's other stacks that are a little bit overowned. We talked about the Kansas City Royals. The Padres are another team that's picking up too much ownership. But for the most part, every other stack kind of rates out well in our top stack stool. The other pitchers who are priced around these guys generally look pretty good, at least ones with talent. Garrett Cole, Aaron Nola. We talked about Logan Webb also as being contrarian option. So that to me is really where you stand out on this slate, is just not playing some of these massive chalk spots. And, and then you just hope the chalk doesn't totally blow up. I don't know if you saw, we also got a super chat from Mike L.
Oh, beautiful. I like super chats. Those are always nice. We got 2 of them. We've got 3 now. Oh, you know what? We're just collecting. We were collecting. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. But here we are. We got $5 from Mike L. That's beautiful. FanDuel GPP single entry. Moose.
Is Eric frozen right now, or is that me? Okay. All right. So Eric's frozen. I'm going to go over and answer these super chats. Eric is, who knows? Maybe Italy fell into the ocean or something. If that's it.
I'm back. Am I back?
Oh,
am I back?
I thought Italy fell into the ocean and you died. But hey, look, you're back. I was just about to start reading some of the super chats. But first from Mike L, FanDuel single entry GPP, Moustakis. That is not how he spells his name. Moustakis and Fernando Tatis, or
but it's Moose Tacos. That's his nickname.
No, it's not. Is it?
Moose Tacos is his nickname. People have said Moose Tacos for years. Nah, it's okay. We learn something new every day. This is what you learned today.
It's gonna be the Stephen S thing again in the.
Yesterday it was Kevin S. Kevin S.
Oh, Kevin S. Yeah. So anyway, this is Moustakis and Tatis for me. Pretty fluid. I definitely prefer them to Moncada and Crawford.
All right. So we got 2 more here. 1 second. There we are. Just double checking to make sure everything was fine on my end here. It is. So that's cool. Just one little blip and we are back. I have my chat up now. Let's see. Going through. Oh, what's next on the board? We've got Demetrius Johnson. The low owned stack for all the money is the Cubs. That's just a statement. I don't feel phenomenal.
All right, Eric, frozen in time in Italy once again. It seems. By the way, it's usually my internet that cuts out, but now I'm in my house where I actually have better internet, so it's not an issue for me. But Eric over in Italy, which maybe they could have stopped over after him at this point. But the Chicago Cubs as a stack. Listen, they're on. I'm pretty sure they're on the longest winning streak in all of baseball right now. They've won 7 games in a row. And as for the Cubs, as a stack today, we do have with a 2.3% chance of being the top scoring team on the slate, but I'm not sure what the real significant upside is for them. Also something to consider about that win streak. A lot of those games came against the Pirates. So I don't really take it too seriously. To be like, oh, look, the Cubs, they're not going to be in the World Series this year. I'll put it this way. But the Chicago Cubs, they're going up against Wade Miley. I don't really want to get to Wade Miley in tournaments, but I'm not really that high on the Cubs either. It's a situation where I find it very unlikely they're going to be the top scoring team of the day. I believe you're back, by the way, Eric.
I am back. No, so somebody's trying to call me right now, and every time it calls, my internet goes out because I'm connected here right now through my phone. I just switched from one to the other. Nobody gives a shit. I'm going to keep moving on. We have Nick Angle there. Thoughts on a 3-man Arizona stack of Peralta?
He thought he was back, but he told a lie because as soon as, by the way, the pose, I don't know if the pose that Eric got stuck in is the same on my computer as what everybody else sees on YouTube, but that is quite the face that Eric is making right there. But all right, from Nick Angle, here is his super chat. It looks like you're moving again, Eric.
I am moving again. He just keeps calling. I've got to find a way to not have him calling me right now.
Have you considered throwing your phone in the garbage? I mean, that's just what I would say. I think that would be the ideal way to get through the last 8 minutes of the show. You throw your phone out, but all right. Nick Angle. Nick Angle. Thoughts on a 3-man Arizona stack of Peralta, Van Meter, and Marte in the GPP to get different with a 5-man San Francisco stack. So let's try to get this answer in as quickly as you can, Eric, before you freeze.
Okay. No, it's just fine by me. Wait. No, it's not fine by me. I don't like that. I don't want to do that whatsoever. What are we talking about? I don't want a San Francisco 5-man lineup, period. I just don't want it. Maybe that makes me a bad person. Maybe again, you have a golden opportunity in tournaments to get off of a super high-owned team, especially like if you want to make a 5-man San Francisco lineup, it's not going to have some of the best hitters in it. So just enjoy that fact. I would rather go elsewhere, I think, on this entire slate. Even if I were making 150, I would be getting to such a limited amount of them. What tournament are you playing in? If you're playing like 150 lineups, sure, get to some 5-mans. But if I'm playing 20 max, if I'm playing, a couple of main lineups, why am I playing a 5-man for San Francisco period? It's not a good enough. You're just going way, way, way chalky on this slate. Don't do it.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm going to say too about Arizona isn't all that contrarian today. We have Arizona as, let's see, they are the 6th most negatively leveraged stack on the slate. They're picking up 4.5% ownership as a team. So then looking at those hitters individually that he brought up, they were, all right, so it was Peralta, Van Meter, Marte. All right, I'm going to go to the individual ownership of those 3 guys. Peralta, Van Meter's picking up 7.4% ownership today. He's not some massive contrarian option. And also, I suspect just through the pricing, he might end up in a lot of those Giants lineups. So you're not really differentiating that much by playing those Diamondbacks guys. This isn't some team that people are just not getting to.
All right, Lavish Life said, what about FanDuel? What about FanDuel? FanDuel sometimes gets no love too. No discrimination here, Squirrel. Good old Outcast for everybody there. What a banger that song is. Continuing on, I'm looking at San Francisco 4-mans, 26.4% ownership. They're even higher owned over on FanDuel. So let's see. That's a pass. I'm not going to do it, period.
Yeah, the ownership, by the way, today is very similar across DraftKings and FanDuel. The most negatively leveraged stacks over on FanDuel, once again, it's the Kansas City Royals, San Francisco Giants. The San Diego Padres, we haven't really talked about them much, but they're fairly negatively leveraged on both FanDuel and DraftKings. So to me, I think a lot of the same kind of stuff applies for FanDuel and DraftKings. All the concerns we have with ownership on San Francisco, they exist on DraftKings and FanDuel today.
All right, Greg, get your lineups in. Make sure you've got everything uploaded here. And then I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about your lineups as we kind of round out this show. But the Awesemo Fantasy Football Draft Kit is the priority of what we need to talk about now. Season long, best ball fantasy, same projections and tools we're using for NFL DFS goes into the package, which includes our draft wingman, best ball rankings, stacking guide, trade value chart, and so much more. You'll receive up to a $35 credit for Underdog and FFPC leagues, and you can get this package for 33% off when you use the promo code WR at checkout. $9.95 gets you everything behind the paywall there for season long in best ball. I don't know why you wouldn't take advantage of that now. I know a lot of you are drafting today. Well, actually, I'm in the future. I'm on Wednesday. And if you don't draft Wednesday, you better draft Thursday morning because football starts on Thursday. I'm sure some season logs maybe say, hey, Thursday, we can still draft to do whatever. I know best balls, there's stuff that starts up after that, but get in and use that tool right now. This is the time to do it. If you have drafts coming up today, if you have drafts coming up tomorrow, take advantage of it immediately because I can't tell you how easy it is to use. Go to the Fantasy Football channel right now. Watch Josh Engelman go through all of the draft wingman stuff. It's a joke. It is so easy. It is so practical, and you can do it live while you're doing your drafts. It's a blast. I absolutely love it, and you will too. All right. We've got, 4 minutes? I'll keep going. So 9 minutes to the end of the show here. What are you seeing in your lineups here? Anything that's sticking out in a meaningful way that's different than what you thought?
By the way, I was just looking up the most popular internet provider in Italy is Telecom. So it is, some people thought using dial-up.
I'm just getting thrashed in the chat,
Yeah.
Just absolutely thrashed.
Yeah,
It has nothing to do with my internet.
I wanted to get some bets going about whether your internet would last through that ad read or not. But hey, you made it through, and you're moving and you're blinking. You can't blink when you're frozen.
And I tried.
That actually, there was a second where I kind of caught it out of the corner of my eye. No, I know you're moving again. Your eyebrows are moving. They're twitching. Your eyebrows, which by the way, at one point, Eric had his eyebrows with a slash shaved in them because of the stuff he did. By the way, this is a very clever way for you to get out of doing the show, by the way. You just stand there frozen the entire time. But is there a way that you could screenshot yourself while you're sitting there frozen, then you just leave and come back after the wedding's over? And it's like, oh no, I was just stuck the entire time. So question, things that stood out about my lineups, right?
Yes, sir.
Not really, just because nothing's changed while we were on the show. There was no real lineup update we got that was earth shattering. Before the show started, we already knew that Shohei Ohtani wasn't going to be playing. We had a lot of the lineups already in there, so No, I know it's not an interesting answer, but the stuff I said earlier in the show today really still applies to after the show. I know you're not frozen.
Damn it. How can you tell? How can
Because
you tell?
move. Because
I was
you
not
move.
moving. I was not moving that time.
You're very twitchy, and also you're trying.
I am
to,
a little twitchy.
You're trying to smile. You're trying to smile. The only thing that kind of throws me for a second is because here I'm looking camera, right? But now to see Eric, I have to look over here. So I only see you out of the corner of my eye. So like I see you not moving, and then I look over. It's like, okay, he's trying to smile, except his cheek muscles are twitching. So I know that you're not frozen, but you can't fool me. Like if you get you get one of these idiots like Josh Engelman on the show, he'd be like, oh, I guess I have to do the show without Eric. Not me. You can't fool me.
Chat loves this. This is absurd. Hit the like button for me because again, I'm here in Italy. I'm giving you guys the love, and apparently Greg is a savant when it comes to recognizing freeze frame. Or again, it's just absurd. The guy's sharp at DFS and at pulling out my bullshit. So there's that. Let's finish this out. We've got 6 minutes left here. We'll go a couple more minutes over the end of the hour here. But what is your dong of the day? We've got everybody wants to know the dong of the day. They want to get double dongs. They want to get triple dongs. Somebody wanted 4 homers from Sal Perez. We'll give them whatever. But who is the guy that you hope homers, and who is the guy that you think homers? Oh my God, that was incredible. That was so good. Dude, that was incredible. I honestly was like, oh shit. And then that was solid. Honestly.
I don't know. I couldn't tell if the camera was on me or not the way I was looking, except I didn't know when you were going to cue back to me. So I had started trying to freeze myself when you were talking before. And then I was like, oh crap, I'm going to blink. Also have my contacts in, they kind of get dry, but all right. Anyway, home run pick for the day. And we're going to do this a couple of ways. First, and most importantly, our MLB player props tool, free to use over at Awesemo.com. And let's give this a refresh. The number 1 player prop bet in our home run model today, once it refreshes on my computer, is Jared Walsh is plus 650 to homer today. Obviously, by the way, he's in the lineup, right? We should probably double check.
No, we should probably double check that.
I'm pretty sure he's in the lineup.
Yeah, he's not.
No, okay, never mind. He's not in the lineup.
100% not in the lineup.
Don't bet on Jared Walsh. I saw him pop up towards the top. I was like, I don't know if
you could bet on his no.
Yeah, no, you can't because that gets wood.
I know it won't
start. So we have Ryan McMahon is plus 600 to homer today, and obviously the matchup is less than ideal today against Logan Webb. But with that said, he's in Coors Field. He's also 6-1 to homer today. We have Ryan McMahon with an 18% chance to go yard today, so that equals a 26% expected ROI on that bet. So that'll be my home run prop pick is Ryan McMahon to homer.
I love that play, dude. You must watch our shows because I talk about Ryan McMahon pretty much every slate as somebody that from Colorado I get to. He's always batting like 6th too, which it's the same way I feel about Kyle Tucker. You get some depreciated ownership. If he was batting 3rd, you just see the ownership come up because he is batting 3rd. And it doesn't change the fact that his power profile looks fantastic. So like that call quite a bit. For me, if we're going to talk sports betting, for me, the one bet that I have going the most here, I love. And again, I've talked about Tampa Bay and Boston here. We have an 11% on the under. Drew Rasmussen, Eduardo Rodriguez, Tampa Bay at Boston. I think I'm going to be playing the under of that. 11% is a really, really meaningful number here in the point spreads. I think that that's sticking out to me here. We're presented by OddsShopper. Check it out, of course. OddsShopper, the best place to go shop for your lines. Constantly be using that in your process. And the easiest way to be able to identify that, go to the MLB Power Rankings and sports betting model. That is completely free still here. And one of the best spots in the industry to be able to find some quick value. And as much as I love Cincinnati, and I think that it's a fantastic stack to get to, plus 125 facing Wade Miley, who I still do not believe in. 4.3% expected ROI on that play. So tiny little bit of edges there. I think I just kind of want to have something to follow a little bit tonight, whether it's recreational, whether it's, professional. You have the ability to use our tools to get into the sports betting streets right now using some of those promos. So the sports betting model, take advantage of that. I love those 2 plays. What do you think about those 2 plays on the way out?
Well, most importantly, because I feel obligated now, here has to be the home run pick of the day. Mike Moustakas, right? I think we're getting 2 homers today for Mike Moustakas. guarantee, lock it up. It's all been good omens on the show. Mustak's also a hitter that I'm individually overweight for the field to, so I am comfortable giving him the home run nod.
Okay. Well, that would be the guy that I know I would be cheering for big time. Him, Ryan McMahon, both of those guys, Kyle Tucker as well. I mean, those are like my three guys. I always end up, maybe it's like a 5 and a 6 hole thing. I don't know. There's no joke to make there. Greg, we've got 2 minutes here before lock. Do you have all your lineups in?
Yeah, I'm good to go. I am good to go. We're all set. We've got our home run picks. Here's one thing we didn't do though. We didn't give out our MLB player prop picks from the strikeouts tool. And the number one prop bet of the day for all pitchers today in our player props model, Chichi Gonzalez, under 3.5 strikeouts. We have that with an 84% expected win rate. There's a little bit of juice on the under, but Chichi Gonzalez, if you want to know just the expectations for the Giants offense today, and no surprise based on the ownership the field's on, but Chichi Gonzalez under 3.5 strikeouts. That is the number one prop bet in our player prop model today.
I'm tilting so hard. I couldn't get in the Jeter drops. You can't even get in the Jeter drops here from Italy. Like, what are we doing here? Did you get any Jeter?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of them. All right, let's see. How many have I bought today? I have bought
a bunch. Did you get a drop? Any freebies?
I got one on the card, but other than that, I've got some sapphires here, which I bought at the top of the show. Don't tell anybody. All right. Then I've also got, I've got a bunch of the carbons, got some of the platinum. We're good. I've got like 10 of them here. We're set.
I hear the music. I'm about to go hear some more music. I absolutely enjoyed this. Jordan Klein behind the glass. Great work, my guy. Greg Ehrenberg giving you all the goods here. I think we did some work. Hopefully you guys can do some work in the DFS streets tonight. For Greg Ehrenberg, for Eric Lindquist over here. That's myself talking in the third person. We'll see you later.